Hey guys. This is part 7 of What If Naruto Was the Older Brother of the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 36, The Bloodline Rebellion Part 7. At the battlefield, Naruto Taishu! Suigetsu and Haki yelled out in relief when they saw the spiky blonde hair of their captain. Naruto, you're finally here, Mei whispered with a soft smile on her face. Sorry for keeping you waiting. I got here as soon as I found out we were under attack, Naruto replied. Yugura got over his surprise and anger, with a smile forming on his face. So, it seems I was wrong. The Uzumaki mercenary didn't run away. I finally get to meet you, the elusive phantom of illusions. Hey, you sure suck at coming up with nicknames, don't you? Naruto said with a smirk, though nobody could see it, as his face was hidden by his Kiri Hunter-nin mask. He turned around to look at the rebels behind him. They were all in terrible shape, and barely half of the number of shinobi that were on the island the day before were present now. Naruto gritted his teeth. Mei's words rang in his mind. If only he had been closer, he could have prevented many of them from dying. He turned back to glare at the army facing him. I'll make you guys pay for what you've done, he growled out in an ominous tone. Yugura smirked. Oh? Will you now? He asked sarcastically. The loyalist shinobi behind Yugura began to retreat further behind, in order to get as far away from Naruto as possible, and also away from their angry leader, who could be quite destructive when angered. The rebels began to do the same. It was clear that a showdown between these two juggernauts was imminent, and they did not want to be caught in the crossfire. It was clear their participation would do next to nothing on the outcome of the fight, and they wanted to stay safe. Besides, this was going to be a fight for the ages. They wanted to be able to watch in relative safety. Only Mei stayed where she stood, before she approached Naruto. Naruto-kun, Mei. I'm sorry I was so late. You were right. I should have done more, Naruto began to say. However, Mei cut him off. No. You were right. I know it's not easy watching people you care about get hurt, but you knew it was something we needed for ourselves. It was wrong of me to accuse you of not caring. I shouldn't have said all of those things to you earlier. I'm so sorry. She stood beside him, intending to help him fight Yugura. Naruto noticed the terrible state Mei was in, and put a hand on her shoulder. We both have our roles to play in this war, and right now, I'm the only one who is in the condition to take on Yugura. So, you want me to sit back and do nothing, like a damsel in distress waiting for her savior? Mei asked angrily. Naruto chuckled. Of course not. To be honest, I'm not sure if I can beat him by myself either. But what's true is that I have more chakra than you right now, and less beat up. I'll see what he's capable of, and if he's too strong for me to handle alone, I'll try to create an opening for you, and you can strike then. Until then, stand back and let me do the fighting, and try to recover a bit if you can, okay? Mei couldn't argue with that, seeing that she was nearly completely out of chakra. She was barely standing on her feet as she was. She reluctantly nodded. You done talking to your girlfriend? Yugura asked, annoyed at having to wait. He wanted to have his epic showdown with a worthy adversary, unhindered and undisturbed. Naruto didn't say anything, but turned to face his enemy. His muscles were tense. He hadn't fought anyone on the caliber of a perfect Jinchuriki before. Good. Get ready to fight for your life, Uzumaki. Yugura shouted out, as coral began to sprout around him as he twirled his staff. Naruto-kun. Mei whispered before she got close to Naruto. He turned to face her, about to tell her get back to her troops, but Mei surprised him with her actions. She lifted his mask and gave him a kiss on the cheek. Naruto turned to her in shock. For good luck. Come back to us safely, Mei whispered in his ear as she gave him a coy smile that he wasn't used to seeing on her face, before putting the mask back on his face and heading back to her troops. Naruto was glad he had his mask on, because his face was as red as Narumi's hair. He shook his head, and focused on the fight once again. Come at me, Yugura challenged with a confident smirk on his face. Naruto didn't say anything, but he drew his Kiri Anbu sword from his sheath. He then blurted out of view. Yugura didn't move from where he was standing, calmly weaving through hand signs rapidly. Naruto struck from behind, sword aimed at Yugura's neck, Yugura didn't even turn to face Naruto, as coral growing from his neck stopped the attack, and began to grow around the sword. Naruto increased the amount of wind chakra he channeled through the blade and quickly pulled it out before the coral could encompass it totally. He jumped back and examined his sword. Damn. That coral is some tough stuff, Naruto thought, as he looked over a chip in the blade of hardened and tempered steel. It looked like this fight wouldn't be so simple. Naruto had to jump back when Yugura thrust at him with his staff with enough force to pierce through flesh if it hit. Luckily for Naruto, it didn't land. Quite the fast one, aren't you? Yugura asked with a grin. Luckily for me, I'm used to dealing with you fast ones. Naruto didn't know what Yugura had up his sleeve, but knew to keep his senses sharp and to be prepared for anything. Naruto formed 3 clones and proceeded to surround Yugura, before all charged at him simultaneously with their swords ready to strike Yugura at different areas. Yugura smirked and simply allowed a thick layer of coral form around him, until he resembled a coral statue. When Naruto's wind chakra-enhanced sword struck the coral, Naruto was surprised to see his swords barely able to penetrate further than a couple centimeters. Sharp branches of coral shot out of the armor of coral, catching the 4 Narutos by surprise when they pierced through their chests. Coral around Yugura's face receded to reveal a smirking Yugura. Didn't expect me to be able to fight from this position, did you? His smile fell off of his face, when the clones disappeared with a puff of smoke, and a log pierced by Yugura's coral was in the place where the original Naruto once was. A short distance away, Naruto looked over his sword. That was enough wind chakra to cut through solid rock. How tough is that coral? He thought to himself, as he examined deep cracks spreading through the sword, branching out from the initial chip. He tossed the now useless sword aside. It appeared that using swords against Yugura was a losing strategy. Like my coral? It's almost as tough as steel. I'd say it's the ultimate defense, Yugura boasted as he stepped out of his coral armor. Naruto formed another clone, who ran at Yugura with his fists drawn back for a haymaker. Really? You think your fists are stronger than your sword? Yugura taunted as coral began to surround him again. Futten, Kairiki Muso! Boil release, unrivaled strength! The clone yelled out as it dodged the sharp branches of coral that shot out of the armor. Despite being rooted to the ground by the coral armor, Yugura was surprised when he was sent skidding back, creating a deep ditch in the ground when the clone landed its punch. However, besides for a few pieces of coral chipping off, most of it was intact. However, the clone wasn't quite done yet. Futten, Bunshin Daibakuha! Boil release, clone great explosion! Naruto called out, and the clone proceeded to hug the coral armor and explode, releasing the pressurized acid. Even at point-blank range, the coral wasn't completely destroyed. A few cracks began to form around Yugura's coral armor, but it was still intact. It only fell apart when Yugura emerged from his shell, seemingly unharmed on the outside. However, it was clear that he had taken some damage when he spat out blood. The shockwave from the explosion had penetrated through the shell to do some internal damage. Hell, looks like I got complacent with my coral armor. Note to self, don't let his clones get that close to me, Yugura said with a smirk. He wasn't too worried about the damage anyway. He'd be able to recover from it before this fight was even over. Naruto gritted his teeth as he watched Yugura basically shake off an explosion that would have destroyed a small house. It looked like he'd need to bring out something bigger. Naruto began to go through his options now that Kenjutsu, the staple of his fighting repertoire, was out of the picture. He was definitely Jonin level in his taijutsu, but it honestly wasn't his strongest suit, and he doubted it would be of much use in this battle. Even as he was fighting a battle of life and death, he smiled under his mask when he recalled the first fight he had with Kakashi. Itachi had been by his side at the time. Lesson 2, Ninjutsu. Naruto recalled to himself. Katan, Goryoka no Jutsu! Fire release, Great Dragon Fire Technique. Naruto spat out a giant blue ball of fire that was shaped like a dragon's head. It scorched the ground as it flew towards Yugura, attesting to how hot the fires were. However, when Yugura twirled his staff around to make a mirror of water, a similar ball of fire emerged from the mirror and collided with Naruto's, forming a giant explosion of flame that forced both combatants to jump backwards to avoid being caught in the blast radius. Within a 50-meter circle, everything was scorched black. Phew! That's quite the fire attack you've got there, Uzumaki! Yugura shouted out with a grin. Naruto-kun! Watch out! He's able to repel any of your ninjutsu by casting that mirror. It's able to copy your own attack and send it back to you," Mei called out. Naruto nodded, and thanks to that bit of information, he began to analyze and compile the info he had gotten on Yagura so far. So, he's got quite the defense, both for physical attacks and for ninjutsu. He prefers to fight statically, taking advantage of his powerful defense, and strikes out opportunistically when he sees an opening. Naruto supposed. Turtles up in his defense, and then strikes out suddenly, huh? Just like a snapping turtle. I guess I'll have to give him something to bite onto before I strike his neck, huh? Naruto concluded. Realize you can't touch me? Yagura taunted. Well, if you're not coming for me, I'll come for you. He smashed his staff into the ground, and sharp corals began to rapidly sprout from the ground, creating a jagged trail of coral that stretched towards Naruto. Naruto ran to the side to dodge it, but the growth of corals followed him. He jumped into the air in an attempt to get away from the corals, but the coral began to grow upwards, threatening to stab him. He created a clone midair, and the clone threw him towards Yagura, before it dispelled in a puff of smoke when it was pierced by the coral. Katon, Hozenka Tsumabini! Fire release, Phoenix Sage Flower Nail Crimson! Naruto threw a wide volley of shuriken at Yagura, simultaneously blowing his blue flames onto the shuriken. Yagura drew a circle in front of him with his staff once again, creating a mirror of water which shot out blazing shuriken and knocked down Naruto's own. However, Naruto noticed the mirror only shot down the shuriken that were directly in front of it. The shuriken that landed harmlessly next to Yagura were untouched. So, the mirror can only block techniques that come from the front, Naruto realized, as he landed and rolled away from Yagura. Damn! I couldn't land a single hit! Naruto said out loud, in an effort to mask the fact that he figured out Yagura's technique. The shinobi on the rebel side began to grow concerned at hearing this and seeing Naruto struggle against Yagura, while the shinobi on the loyalist side began to grow confident in their victory. Naruto-sama! Haku whispered to herself in concern, as she watched the fight. Don't worry about Naruto, Haku. If anyone can handle Yagura, it's him. Zabuza told her in an effort to comfort her. Mei watched Naruto fight against Yagura with a concerned look, before she was distracted by someone calling her. Yes, what is it? She asked as she turned to the voice. Kimimaro said nothing as he stuck out his arm. It appeared he was holding something in his hand. You look like you could use this, Mei-sama, Kimimaro told Mei, when she looked at him in confusion. It was clear to him that she was close to collapsing from chakra exhaustion. It's a chakra pill. I carry several for emergencies, due to my condition. Here, take it. Mei looked at the pill in Kimimaro's hand in silence for a couple seconds, before she gave him a warm smile. Thank you, Kimimaro-kun. Meanwhile, back at the fight, Naruto yelled out, Katon, Fire Hydra Jutsu! As he completed a complex chain of hand seals. He then exhaled a massive dragon made of blue fire at Yagura. Yagura rolled his eyes at the similar pattern of attack. Was the Uzumaki stupid? Didn't he learn that this wouldn't work on him yet? He cast his Mizukigami no Jutsu, water mirror technique, again. A similar dragon of fire shot out of the mirror, and collided with the dragon Naruto had made. However, when the two dragons collided, two more dragons shot out of either side of Naruto's dragon of fire, and circled around the mirror to fly towards either side of Yagura. Shit! Yagura yelled out as he quickly formed a thick armor of coral around him to protect himself from the surprise attack. When the fire cleared out, Yagura's armor of coral stood standing, relatively unharmed. However, the coral on the sides had been bleached bone white. Immediately after casting the Fire Hydra Jutsu, Naruto immediately followed through by creating 4 shadow clones to attack Yagura from each side with a steam power boosted punch or kick. Once again, Yagura stayed in his bastion of tough coral, allowing his sharp branches of coral to attack while he stayed safe. The clones coming from the front and from the back were pierced and puffed out of existence. However, Naruto noticed that Yagura was unable to grow coral from the bleached corals. When the clones coming from the left and right landed their hits, the white coral shattered, and Yagura was sent flying a short distance away. So, fire kills the coral, preventing it from growing, and renders it brittle, Naruto realized. Yagura picked himself off the ground, and dusted his clothes. Heh, not bad, Uzumaki. I'd have been disappointed if you were any weaker, like our dear friend Mei over there, Yagura said with a smirk. Mei glared at Yagura as she gritted her teeth. How dare he accuse her of being weak when he waited until she was nearly collapsing from the lack of chakra before he struck. That coward! Koro release, Polyp bullet jutsu! Yugura yelled out after a chain of hand seals, and proceeded to spit out several pink bullets at Naruto. The rebels gasped when they heard several dull thuds hit Naruto, and Naruto fell on his back. Yugura's smirk faded, when once again, a puff of smoke revealed a log with several pink bullets embedded in it. Naruto looked at the log in surprise, a short distance away, when coral began to grow from the bullets, quickly encompassing the entire log. Shit, if I didn't carry me out of there in time, I would have been trapped, Naruto thought to himself. Quite the slippery eel you are, Yugura commented. You run away exceedingly well, just like these rebel cockroaches. Naruto grinned at Yugura's taunt, unfazed. He had seen enough of what Yugura was capable of to come up with a plan. He unsealed kunai with a tag attached to it, and threw it at Yugura. Kunai Kage Bunshin no Jutsu! Kunai Shadow Clone Technique! The single kunai multiplied into hundreds, and flew at Yugura. Explosive tags? Let's see how they stack up against this, Yugura said to himself as he prepared for another jutsu. When Yugura called out, Coral release! Barrier Reef Bastion! Vast amounts of coral quickly rose out of the ground and formed a giant semicircle with a 10-meter radius around him. The hail of kunai hit the wall of coral, but were unable to penetrate the tough material. They all fell to the ground. Did you really think some kunai would cut it? Yugura wondered out loud, before Naruto formed a single hand seal. Kai! The tags on the kunai all went off at once. A thick black smoke exploded out of the tags, covering Yugura's field of vision. They were just decoys. Katan, hunting pack of the underworld jutsu! Yugura tried to clear the smoke away by using the Suijin-hiki jutsu, water encampment wall technique. He was surprised when he saw several massive dogs made of fire jump over the wall of coral, and heading straight for him. Suetun, Mizukigami no Jutsu! Water release, water mirror technique! Several similar hounds leapt out of the mirror and crashed into the flaming dogs, causing several small explosions of fire, when the jutsu cancelled each other out. Yugura had thought he was in the clear, when several flaming dogs leapt out of the smoke behind him, and from either side. Coral release, coral armor jutsu! Yugura quickly covered himself in a thick layer of coral to shield himself. The dogs crashed into Yugura from all sides, causing explosions of blue fire when they crashed into him. The flames died down to reveal Yugura completely encompassed in a thick layer of bone-white coral. Shit! That was close. He almost got me with that one, Yugura thought to himself in relief. However, Naruto wasn't done. That last move had merely been the setup. Naruto jumped off of the wall of coral, to gain an incredible amount of airtime with a steam-boosted jump. Futon, Kairiki Muso! Boil release, unrivaled strength! Naruto cried out, bringing a steaming fist down onto the white coral surrounding Yugura. The powerful punch shattered the brittle bleached coral, and created a massive crater in the ground, with Yugura lying in the middle. The loyalists gasped as they saw their leader lying motionless in the ground. They were speechless and in shock, seeing their undefeated leader lying in a crater that no one would believe was created by a single punch. The rebels, on the other hand, were cheering. The man that had been tormenting them for years was finally down. That son of a bitch! He actually did it! Zabuza commented as he smiled. However, Ale watched the scene with a grim face. The Byakugan under his eye patch was showing him things that others couldn't see. No, he's not done yet! Mei turned to look at Ao, before she turned to look at Yugura's prone form again, staring with a worried look. Naruto watched Yugura's body from the edge of the crater, observing to see if there was even the slightest movement coming from him. He wouldn't let his guard down yet. When he saw Yugura twitching, he flew at Yugura with a kunai. He would make sure he was dead before he celebrated. Yugura rolled over just in time to avoid having a kunai go through the back of his skull. However, Naruto's kunai still pierced through his left shoulder. Naruto was shocked when Yugura grabbed the hand holding the kunai with his right hand, preventing Naruto from pulling the kunai out. Yugura unnerved Naruto when he began to laugh out loud. Naruto tried pulling his arm back with all of his strength, but Yugura's grip was surprisingly strong, unmoving with his vice-like grip. He then tried to force Yugura to let go, by channeling wind chakra through the kunai to inflict even more pain, but Yugura just tanked it, and Naruto was unable to move his hand enough to do more damage, due to the powerful hold Yugura had on Naruto's hand. You're strong! Really strong. No one has ever pushed me so far before. It's time I reward you for your power and skill in battle. Yugura shouted out with a hint of madness seeping into his voice. A cloak of dark red chakra began to envelop him, taking the form of a humanoid, spiky, three-tailed turtle. Yugura drew back his arm and punched Naruto in the mask. Naruto flew back, creating a deep crack in the wall of the crater when he smashed into it. The tough, resilient mask on his face shattered, revealing blood trickling down Naruto's face from a cut on his forehead, and from his busted lips. Yugura didn't give him any chance to recover. He blurred out of view, rocketing into Naruto with a devastating uppercut that sent Naruto tearing through the wall of the crater, and sent him flying into the air. He landed on the ground on his back, bouncing a couple times. Yugura jumped out of the crater and landed a short distance away from him. Mei, and the rest of the rebels with her, began to pale. This was it. Nobody saw the chakra cloak of the three-tailed bijou and lived. Naruto spat out blood as he picked himself up. If he hadn't reinforced his entire body with chakra in time, he would have been a bloody splatter on the ground. That bastard! He punches harder than Tsunade. He looked at his right wrist when he felt a sharp pain from it, and saw that the skin around his wrist had been burned off from the corrosive chakra from the bijou chakra surrounding Yugura. So, this is what it's like facing a bijou, he thought to himself. Naruto didn't have much time to think anything else, as he had to Kawarimi away from Yugura's blazing quick punch that was aimed at his head. The log that had taken his place exploded into thousands of wood chips no bigger than toothpicks when Yugura's punch landed on it. Naruto's head was still spinning from the punches he took from Yugura, but he knew he had to stay focused, or he'd be dead in a split second. Shit. His whole fighting style has changed. He doesn't use jutsu anymore, but he's so much faster and stronger than before. I'm struggling to keep up. And that chakra surrounding him, it's corrosive. I can't touch him without hurting myself. Mei and the rebels watched with trepidation, as they watched their champion on the back foot for the first time, using all of his concentration to dodge Yugura's rapid strikes, not given any time to form hand seals for jutsu. If this keeps up, I'm bound to slip up eventually. One hit, and I'm a goner. Naruto mused. He's not giving me any time to use jutsu, and I can't use taijutsu against him right now. Though Yugura swung rapidly, his attacks were still focused on Naruto. He wasn't planning on giving Naruto even the slightest second to even breathe. It appeared to everyone that Naruto had his hands tied, unable to fight back. I really didn't want to have to reveal this, but it looks like I have no choice. Naruto surprised Yugura by letting a punch slip by his face, and driving a blue ball of tightly compressed and rapidly rotating chakra into his ribs. Rasengan! Yugura was sent flying, and created a deep trench as he skidded across the ground. The battlefield went silent when Naruto sent Yugura flying. The silence was broken when one of the older shinobi present on the battlefield shouted in shock. That's the Yondaime Hokage's jutsu! Everyone's eyes fell upon Naruto, and their jaws dropped when they saw ice-cold blue eyes that were calm yet calculating, and the blood-crusted blonde hair on his head. It's the Yellow Flash! Those simple words sent a chill crawling up the loyalists' spines, and some of them began to discreetly back away from the battlefield. Some of them had seen him in action firsthand, and knew they were lucky to be alive now. The rebels were also in shock when Naruto's face was revealed to many of them for the first time. Murmurs began to break out. What's the Yondaime Hokage doing here? You idiot! The Yondaime Hokage is dead! How could he be here? Is it his son? Does that mean Konoha is involved? Why would they only send him then? Mei watched in silence as she listened to her men wonder what was going on. Meanwhile, Yugura threw the rubble covering him off of his body, and looked at Naruto in fury. You! He roared as he charged towards Naruto with his fists drawn back for another haymaker. Naruto was able to easily dodge his attack, now that his fury had driven him into a berserker rage, and his attacks were sloppier. He punished Yugura for each sloppy attack by driving a Rasengan into his stomach, his back, and any other exposed part on his body. After taking a Rasengan to the face which sent him flying back, Yugura picked himself up once again. Fuck it! I'm going to make sure they never even find a shred of your body! Yugura screamed out in a deep voice that wasn't completely his. Everyone watched in silence, as the dark red chakra that surrounded Yugura began to grow and expand, until it quickly turned into its final form. The Sanbai! Mei whispered out despondently. This was the worst-case scenario. Yugura, or the Sanbai as it appeared to be now, roared a mighty roar which created shockwaves that sent debris flying in all directions. Naruto stayed rooted to where he stood, as he wordlessly observed the massive beast in front of him. His mind was in chaos as he tried to come up with a strategy to defeat the Sanbai. Yugura spoke in the Sanbai's deep, booming voice. "Now that you've shown me your attacks, why don't I show you one of mine?" Chakra begin to gather and condense into a single black ball of chakra in front of Yugura's mouth in his Biju chakra cloak form. "It's Yugura's Bijudama!" Tailed Beast Ball! A rebel officer yelled out in terror. Naruto drew a three-pronged kunai, and prepared himself to dodge Yugura's most powerful attack. Yugura surprised Naruto when he turned to face the rebel army instead. The rebels could do nothing but watch as Yugura finally fired the black ball of condensed chakra at them. The force of the approaching ball of doom blew wind in their direction, blowing the hair and clothes of the rebels towards the back. Mei's hair also was blown back, revealing her eyes full of anger and also fear, as her life flashed before her eyes. "Kuchios, Sunju Rashomon! Summoning Triple Rashomon!" A voice rang out in the air, as three demonic-looking gates erupted from the ground in between the rebels and the Bijudama. The deadly ball of chakra smashed through the first gate, busted open the second gate, but was stopped by the third gate, which dissipated all of the force behind the exploding ball of chakra. "What?" Yugura shouted out in surprise. How had he been able to stop this attack, which was strong enough to destroy an entire small village? He turned his gaze to see the man who had summoned the defensive structure. Naruto panted as he lifted his hands from the ground. He had barely been able to pull that off in time to save the rebels. "Your fight is with me, Yugura!" Naruto shouted. He had to jump out of the way, when the ground he was standing on him was destroyed by the spiky tail of the Sanbai that was swung at him. "Futon, Kairiki Muso! Boil release, unrivaled strength!" Naruto yelled out as steam began to emanate from his body. He picked up a house-sized chunk of earth that had been created in the fight between him and Yugura, and threw it at the massive form of Yugura. Yugura didn't even try to dodge the massive boulder that was sent flying at him. He tanked the projectile, which hit his spiky shell, and disintegrated into tiny rocks, doing next to no damage to Yugura. Looks like physical attacks don't seem to do much," Naruto said to himself, as he prepared for his next jutsu. He was forced to stop his jutsu midway, when Yugura in his Sanbai form surprised Naruto by rolling up into a ball and rolling at him much faster than his giant size suggested. "That was close. That was like the Akimichi Nikuden Sensha. Human bullet tank," Naruto remarked to himself as he threw himself, with a chakra-boosted jump, to the side to avoid being flattened. He stood up and quickly rushed through hand signs to form his next jutsu, before Yugura could turn his massive body around and come at him again. "Futon, Acid Dragon Jutsu!" Naruto launched a dragon formed of hot, compressed acidic vapors, which flew towards Yugura. Once again, Yugura blocked it with his shell, but the dragon exploded on contact, releasing the hot, acidic vapors. "Argh!" Yugura roared in pain, as the acidic mist slowly dissolved part of his shell. Yugura spat a torrent of water into the air, which fell on himself, and washed the acid away. He then turned to glare at Naruto, and released his own jutsu at him. "Suetun, Suedanya! Water release, water severing wave!" Yugura spat out a high-pressure stream of water that cut cleanly through several chunks of earth and through the rock which was behind where Naruto was standing, before Naruto jumped away to avoid being hit. "So, he can still use jutsu in this form? Damn! How am I supposed to defeat him?" Naruto thought to himself. "I'm going to need some backup. Kuchios no jutsu! Summoning technique, you summoned me, Naruto-sama?" Naruto's giant clam summon asked as it revealed itself after the smoke from the summoning dispersed. "Yeah, I need your help defeating Yugura and the Sanbai," Naruto told Shinkiru. "The Sanbai? I am not powerful enough to fight against one of the Biju, Naruto-sama," the clam responded telepathically. "Just create some openings for me, so I can attack him. I shall create some illusions of you and hide your presence to help you." Naruto nodded. "I'm also going to need you to prepare me for that thing we discussed before." "Surely you don't mean that? You know the drawbacks. We haven't figured out the kinks yet," Shinkiru asked in shock. "Does it look like we have any better options? If I don't, then we're all going to die." "Screw the drawbacks," Naruto told Shinkiru resolutely. "Very well. I shall do as you ask. Give me a couple minutes to prepare then. Naruto nodded. When the giant clam emanated the mirage-inducing vapor from its siphon, Naruto and the clam vanished from the view of everyone present. Where did he go? One rebel shinobi vocalized the question that was in everyone's minds. Yagura too looked around, trying to locate Naruto. Otama Rasengan. Big Ball Rasengan. Several voices yelled out all around Yagura. Yagura howled in pain, as dozens of extra-large Rasengans drilled into his body from all directions. He swung his tails as he thrashed around, dispelling many of Naruto's clones who were attacking him. Where the hell are you? Yagura yelled as he fired jet after jet of water at illusions of Naruto, while Naruto's clones attacked him from the openings he left. How much longer, Shin? Naruto asked Shinkiru as he created and sent clone after clone at Yagura. He needed his summon to hurry up with the preparations as his chakra was quickly diminishing. Just a little bit more. The clam answered back. I'll need your help with buying some time then, Shinkiru. Naruto relayed to the giant clam. Got it. Mud release, slip river. The clam pointed its siphon at Yagura and sprayed a thick stream of clay that covered his entire body. Katon, Gokameshitsu, fire release, great fire destruction. Naruto called out next, before he inhaled, and then proceeded to exhale a massive stream of blue fire that completely engulfed the entire form of the Sanbai. Yagura howled in pain in the deep booming voice of the Sanbai, as the extremely hot fire burned its tough hide, and made it tough to breathe by burning up all of the oxygen around it. The spectating shinobi around the two combatants were absolutely stunned to witness a fight of this caliber. The blue stream of fire that Naruto had used was so intense that they had to turn away to protect their eyes. While what is this? Is this really a fight between two people? Rebels and loyalists alike wondered. The clay covering Yagura quickly dried up, before the intense heat began to fire the clay into a ceramic prison that bound Yagura's movement. Naruto cut off the flow of chakra to the extremely chakra-intensive jutsu, and fell to one knee, exhausted. He looked up to see if his plan had worked. When the fire and the smoke died down, Yagura's Sanbai form was revealed once again, standing upon a huge patch of scorched earth, where everything was covered in a blackened char. Even the muddy ground he was standing on had been baked into a brick-like material, and Yagura himself was bound in an extremely tough, stoneware body prison that completely restricted his movement. For a moment, the rebels thought they had a breakthrough. Yagura was bound. It seemed like victory was imminent, when cracks began to rapidly spread throughout the ceramic shell binding Yagura. You insignificant ant! How dare you! Yagura bellowed, as the ceramic prison around him exploded into pieces as Yagura twisted and flexed his massive body. Crap. I guess it won't be that simple, huh? Naruto commented as he panted. Naruto-sama. The preparation is complete. Shinkiru finally reported, opening up its shell. I'm done with trying to find you. I'll just destroy this whole island with you, Yagura yelled, as he prepared to use the Bijudama on the rebel forces once again. Naruto grabbed the shining pearl the size of a blueberry sitting on Shinkiru's tongue, and quickly swallowed it. Here goes nothing! Meanwhile, Yagura had finished charging the Bijudama, this time larger than before, and aimed it at the rebels. Bijudama! Kuchios, Sunju Rashomen! Naruto called out, this time raising 3 demonic gates at an angle, which failed to completely block the massive ball of destruction this time, but was able to redirect it away from the rebels. The massive ball of chakra struck a hill on the outer edges of the island, and completely destroyed that part of the island, attesting to the power of the Bijudama. The elusive mist began to clear, revealing Naruto to everyone. Yagura immediately fired another blast of high-pressure water at Naruto, intending to punch a hole right through him. Senpo, bivalve barrier jutsu! However, that plan was foiled when Naruto summoned a thick clamshell as a wall to protect himself. The curved shape of the shell turned the beam of water into a massive spray of water around Naruto, similar to how a spoon might do the same when put under a stream of water under a running tap. What the? Why does he look so different? The shinobi watching him wondered out loud, when the mist around Naruto from Yagura's attack receded. When Naruto opened his eyes, his blue irises were replaced by the whitish, iridescent color of a pearl. A necklace of pearls graced his neck like a monk's beaded necklace. Grayish-blue lines formed below his eyes, reminiscent of kabuki paint. A coat similar to the one worn by the second Mizukage was draped on his shoulders. Just remember, we clams do not have a tradition of sages, meaning we never taught our summoners to use nature chakra. These pearls of concentrated nature chakra will just give you a temporary boost of nature chakra, which will allow you to use sage jutsu for a little bit, but will come with its drawbacks when you run out. Shinjiro warned Naruto. That's fine, I'll only need it for a little bit anyway. Let's see how many times you can summon your annoying gates. Yugura yelled as he prepared the Bijudama again. Enough. Senpo Kuchios, Myo Jinmin. Sage Art Summoning, Gate of the Great God. Naruto shouted out. Yugura was about to fire off his Bijudama, when several interlocking wooden torii gates fell from the sky, and pinned him down by the neck, arms, legs, and tails. The chakra gathered for the Bijudama fizzled away as the torii gates began to suppress Yugura's Biju chakra. What is this? What have you done to me? Let me go! Yugura bellowed out as he thrashed about in an effort to free himself. No matter how hard he tried, he could not seem to free himself. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, he was trapped and unable to move, helpless, just like he had been when he was a child. Flashback Yugura's childhood. No! Please! I don't want this. An 8-year-old Yugura begged as he was being strapped down to a medical cot. Shut up. You asked for this. A fierce-looking Yuki clansman hissed as he tried to strap down his legs. This isn't what I meant. I don't want to become a demon. Yugura screamed. Struggling as if he were fighting for his life, Yugura kicked the Yuki clansman in the eye, and knocked him to the floor, and shook off the others and tried to run away. He was quickly caught when ice began to grow around his ankles, trapping him in place. You damn brat. I'll make you pay for that. The short-tempered Yuki clansman growled as he wiped the blood seeping from the cut on his left eyebrow. He walked up to the trapped Yugura, and punched him in the stomach with all of his strength. Unable to even fall, Yugura was beaten to a pulp. Rooted to the ground he stood on by a shackle of ice. Once Yugura was barely conscious, they began to strap him down again. When Yugura felt the straps on his body again, he began to fight back with a second wind. However, it was a little too late. The shinobi were able to strap him down in time. You want to play rough, little boy? Why don't I teach you a little lesson you never forget? The Yuki clansman said with cruel smile that Yugura would never forget. The man formed a thin scalpel of ice and brought it close to Yugura's face. Yugura's eyes were wide with fear, and tears fell from his eyes. Please! Don't hurt me anymore. I promise I'll behave. It's much too late for apologies, little boy. I'll teach you the concept of an eye for an eye. The other shinobi around the two didn't stop the Yuki clansman. They merely watched with snickers at seeing the terrified boy. The cruelty they experienced growing up in the bloody mist had desensitized them to such things, and they had little empathy for others. I'm gonna leave you a little gift you'll see every time you look in the mirror. The Yuki clansman began to cut into Yugura's face, intending to flay the skin off of his face near his eyes, starting with the cut below his left eye. Yugura screamed and thrashed around with all of his strength, but was unable to stop the cruel man from cutting a deep cut under his eyes. That's enough! A rough voice boomed. Mizukage-sama! The shinobi present saluted, stopping what they were doing. The third Mizukage walked over to the bleeding boy on the table. So you're the boy they said wanted a bloodline. Please, Sandaime-sama. I didn't know they wanted to turn me into a demon. Please. Let me go. Yugura begged. The Sandaime shook his head. Unfortunately, I can't do that. My scientists and seal masters have revealed that you are one of the rare people who are able to contain the Sanbai. After losing the Night Aim, our most powerful shinobi, we'll need all of the weapons we can get. Be proud you'll be serving our village by becoming its weapon. Yugura's eyes widened when he realized there was no way for him to get out of this now. This was sanctioned by the Sandaime Mizukage. Now why don't you try to relax? It will end much faster that way. The third Mizukage told Yugura, before he nodded to his men, telling them to proceed. Weeks later Yugura sat at the edge of a pond, throwing stones into the water. Ever since word got out that he was the new Jinchuriki of the Sanbai, all of his friends stopped associating with him. His world had been turned upside down ever since the sealing. He had been a naive child, looking up to shinobi like the others in his age, thinking them to be the coolest thing around. Bloodline users in particular were especially respected. The Sandaime's military doctrine revolved around building up the number of bloodline users to bolster his forces, and he gave them special treatment. As such, they were exempt from the barbaric practice of academy student death matches, and were treated as nobility. Yugura had revered them for their powers as well, but after suffering at their hands, came to realize they were corrupt. He realized just how unfair the system in Kiri was, especially towards him. He wasn't even really seen as a human anymore, just a weapon. Just like most parents don't want their children playing with explosives, they didn't want their kids playing with Yugura. The sadistic shinobi of Kiri didn't care about his well-being, and only focused on his training, which was brutal. I wish I never opened my stupid mouth about wishing I had a bloodline. Yugura mumbled to himself as he threw another stone into the water. And why is that? An unfamiliar voice asked, making Yugura jump up in surprise. Who are you? Yugura asked in surprise, seeing a strange man with a mask on his face and a hooded cloak over his body. Nobody important. A forgotten boy from the past, I suppose? The masked man replied. What do you want? Yugura asked the strange man suspiciously. He had learned not to trust people after the sealing. I'd like to ask you the same. What do you want? The man in the mask asked back. He didn't know why he felt compelled to answer, or why he felt like he could trust the man, but he did, and so he began to speak. Meanwhile, unseen to Yugura, a pair of Sharingan were spinning behind the mask of the stranger. Well, I wish things were different around here. I wish people could be all treated equally. It's not fair that some people get to be considered better than others, just because they were born into a certain family that gives them special powers. And it's not fair that I get treated like scum just because they forced the Sanbai inside me. I'm still the same Yugura, but people just see me as the Sanbai now. It's not like I wanted this either. They tricked me. Why do I have to be the one who suffers for that? It's not fair! Yugura yelled, as he got more and more emotional as he spoke. You're right. The world isn't fair, the masked man replied. So, what are you going to do about it? Yugura stopped and thought for a second. What could he do? What can I do? I'm just a little kid. A little kid who has a demon inside me. No one cares what I think, and it's not like I can change anything by myself. The masked man shook his head. You're wrong. You can change the world even by yourself. Yugura raised an eyebrow. How? Power, the masked man replied. You need power. If you're strong enough, you can create the changes you want to see. Yugura thought about it, and then remembered how the Kiri shinobi overpowered him and forced him into becoming a Jinchuriki. The Mizukage could make any changes he wanted, and he too became one by being stronger than the others. He slowly began to nod. You're right. I need to get stronger. I'll train so hard that I'll become stronger than everyone else. Then I'll force them to change. The masked man nodded, but added to what he said. You'll certainly need that kind of power. However, there's more. Controlling information is also power. You must be able to keep information to yourself, by using tricks and lies. You must be able to pretend you are something you are not, or pretend you know something you don't, or pretend you don't know something you do know. This way, you can control the flow of information. This is also power. Yugura thought about what he just heard, as he stared into his reflection in the water. Become powerful, boy. Become powerful enough to bring the changes you want to see. And become powerful enough to punish those who use their power to create this unfair world. Strong enough to punish those who have wronged you. Yugura nodded as he continued to stare at his reflection. Yes, you're right. I'll make all of those bad people pay for what they've done. Yes. I see it now. I'll pretend to be fine with this terrible system until I'm strong enough. I'll gain their trust, and then make them pay when they least expect it. He shouted out, starting to form a hysterical smile on his face. Thanks. When Yugura turned to thank the masked man and ask for his name, he found the man gone without a trace. He looked around for him for a while, but never found him. Still, Yugura wasn't too bothered. He had a goal for his life now. An ambition he must accomplish. He would endure all the hardships that came his way and do whatever he needed to do until he realized this dream. I promise I'll bring the end of the bloody mist, Mask-san. I'll bring equality to this village. He whispered to himself. His face grew darker, as a sadistic smile took over his face. And I'll start by showing those bloodline users what they deserve. End flashback. Yugura bellowed and thrashed around harder than ever as he remembered the promise he had made to the masked man, and to himself. No! I must finish what I've started. He roared as he tried to free himself. Naruto was forced to put more chakra into his jutsu, in an effort to hold down Yugura. Sweat poured down his face as he struggled to maintain his jutsu. As difficult as it was, Naruto was able to keep him in check. Yugura began to panic when he felt the Biju chakra slipping away from him. His gigantic form began to shrink. And oh! Yugura screamed out as he began to return to his human form. Before Yugura could recover from the shock of transforming, Naruto charged at Yugura. Otama Rasengan. Big Ball Rasengan. He smashed Yugura with the big ball of rapidly spinning chakra, and sent him flying into the post of one of the torii gates that had held down the Sanbai form of Yugura. Yugura coughed up blood as he fell to the ground. The clothes on his chest had been completely torn to pieces, and he was cut up pretty badly, as he had been unable to completely cover himself with his coral armor in time. Naruto watched Yugura slowly pick himself up, and noticed something. There! On his chest! There's the seal holding the Sanbai! Naruto realized. Yugura was shaken up still, and unable to completely focus, but when he saw Naruto form another Otama Rasengan, he began to mold his chakra in advance to be able to use his coral jutsu. Naruto reached into his pocket, and pulled out a smoke bomb with his free hand. He threw the bomb towards Yugura, who shot it out of the air with a bullet of coral. Several regular kunai emerged out of the smoke, aimed at Yugura, but Yugura knew a static defense would be walking into Naruto's trap. He wasn't sure if his coral armor could hold out against the Otama Rasengan, and he didn't want to find out the hard way. He instead dodged them or blocked them with coral partially covering his arms to stay mobile, and kept an eye out for Naruto. He heard a coat flapping, and looked up to see Naruto coming down at him with the Otama Rasengan. He had apparently jumped up high out of view using the smoke and kunai as a distraction to attack Yugura. It was a good distraction, and might have gotten him if he was less attentive. However, it was a double-edged sword for Naruto, as it was harder to maneuver yourself in the air. Yugura grinned as he used the coral on his arm as a starting point to form a spear of coral. Using his superior reach, Yugura was able to pierce Naruto in the stomach. However, Yugura was left surprised when Naruto disappeared in a puff of smoke. Yugura looked over the battlefield, trying to locate Naruto. He must have used the smoke bomb as a distraction to hide himself. Where could he be? Yugura thought to himself as he looked around. Suddenly, one of the kunai on the floor next to him transformed into Naruto with a puff of smoke, and caught Yugura by surprise. Gojo Fuin! 5 Elements Seal! Purple flames lit up on each of Naruto's fingers, which he aimed at Yugura's seal on his chest. Even as Yugura was caught by surprise, he was able to quickly respond and shot out a spear of coral out of his arm, and towards Naruto. Naruto was about to dodge, when he suddenly felt immense pain in his entire body, as the unfiltered nature chakra from the pearl had briefly overwhelmed his reduced reserves of chakra, and damaged his body. His training in pain endurance meant he only froze up for a fraction of a second, like how someone feeling a heartburn might, but that second was all it took for Yugura to stab him with his sharp branch of coral. Naruto was still able to avoid a fatal blow, shifting his body to have the coral pierce his shoulder instead of his chest. Even with the coral in his shoulder, he continued to push himself closer to Yugura, which made the coral pierce deeper into his shoulder, but put him into reach to slam his hand into Yugura's seal. When the Gojo Fuin was applied to Yugura's seal, he lost all connection to the Sanbai's powers, including the coral. Yugura was sent to the ground, and the coral that had begun to grow around Naruto's shoulder stopped growing. What did you do?" Yugura screamed out as he stood up, seeing that he couldn't access any of the powers granted to him by the Sanbai, and struggled to channel his own chakra as well. Naruto just smirked. He wasn't in the mood for explaining anything. The smirk fell off his face, as his body was once again racked with pain, as the pearl had poisoned his body with the nature chakra. This time, the pain was worse, and lasted longer, and Naruto fell to his knees and coughed up blood. He would have already been suffering from chakra exhaustion, but the poisoning from the pseudo-sage mode made it worse, and caused him unbearable pain, causing him to writhe on the ground in agony. Yugura saw this as an opening, and drew a kunai. It wouldn't take any chakra to slice a throat. Naruto saw this and tried to get up, but there was no strength left in him, and he stumbled as the pseudo-sage mode faded away. Yugura grinned madly, as he began to charge at Naruto, hoping to kill him quickly before he recovered. "This is the end of the line for you, Uzumaki!" Yugura yelled as his kunai began its downward arc towards Naruto's neck. "Futon, Acid Cannon Jutsu!" A female voice rang out. That was the last thing Yugura heard, before a corrosive glob of acid shot off his arm, and began dissolving the wound it formed. Yugura's kunai fell short of its mark, and Yugura stumbled and fell, as the pain from having parts of your body dissolve was unbearable. Why you? You bitch! Yugura yelled as he wobbled back to his feet. He was pissed that Mei interfered in his fight against Naruto, only jumping in when he was weakened. How did you like that? A taste of your own medicine? You waited until I was nearly about to collapse before you hopped in, and now, I have the pleasure of doing the same, Mei said with a grin as she walked up to the now one-armed Yugura. I'll kill you for that! Yugura screamed as he tried to attack, but with one arm and no access to his Bijuu chakra, he was unable to do anything, and fell when Mei gave him a fierce low kick to the side of his knee. You look real pitiful right now. Can't accept what's coming for you, can you? Mei said to Yugura, as she slowly formed hand seals. No! It's not over yet! I still have so much left to do! Yugura cried out as he crawled towards a kunai on the ground, hoping to throw the kunai at Mei, and maybe kill her. This is the end of the line for you, Yugura. Your reign of tyranny is over. Yotan, Yokai no Jutsu! Lava release, melting apparition technique! Yugura's screams pierced through the night sky, as Mei's lava burned and melted him to death. His screams announced the end of a civil war that had lasted for nearly a decade. At first, the Loyalists were in shock at the abrupt end of a fight they thought was on their side the whole time, but then they realized the implications of Yugura's death. The symbol of the Loyalists was dead, and so were his policies and visions. They threw down their arms and surrendered. The rebels quickly moved in to bind the surrendering Loyalists, and cheers celebrating their final victory rang out loudly from all over the place. The war that had laid Kiri to waste had finally come to an end. Time would eventually help people heal, but scars that would never fade away were left both in the hearts and bodies of the people involved. The lands that the battles were fought were just as scarred, and even the gates of Uzushio was heavily scarred from the battle that took place this night, which left thousands dead. Only the acrid smell of Yugura's sizzling body served as a funerary incense for the thousands of shinobi that died. In the midst of the celebration, two figures stood over Naruto, who went unconscious just after seeing Mei kill Yugura. What should we do with him, Mei-sama? Ao asked Mei. He's far too dangerous, Mei-sama. Look at what he was able to do tonight. He killed nearly 1,000 shinobi by himself, and nearly defeated a perfect Jinchuriki on his own. If we were to meet him on the battlefield as enemies, Mei knew O had a point. They would never get another chance like this to kill him. They could easily blame his death on Yugura too. She was once again forced with having to choose between what she wanted, and what would be best for Kiri. Ao. Get some men to carry him. We're taking him to Kiri, Mei ordered. Chapter 37, The Bloodline Rebellion Part 8. With Naruto before he could even see her signature red hair, he was greeted by her signature loud voice. Ni-chan! That one word was enough to catch the blonde's attention. Narumi-chan! Naruto greeted his younger sister with a wide smile that only she ever got to see. The redhead ran towards her brother and jumped with her arms spread wide, flying towards his open arms, as she had done ever since she could run. Naruto had missed his sister terribly, so when he finally saw her again, his heart felt whole again. Everything was going great, until Naruto felt his body move on its own. A blue ball of rapidly swirling chakra formed on his right hand. No! Narumi! Watch out! Naruto tried to warn, but it was too late. The redhead was already in the air, heading straight towards him, not expecting for even a second that her beloved brother would ever hurt her. As hard as he tried to stop his body, he found that he couldn't, and the Rasengan was driven straight into Narumi's chest. The spinning ball of chakra did exactly what it was designed to do. It tore a hole through her chest, exploding out the back, leaving a messy, gaping hole in the back that was several times bigger than the entry wound. No! Naruto screamed in shock and pain when he saw his adorable sister basically torn apart, held together by strips of skin and muscle. She collapsed on the floor, face down. Blood began to pool all around her. Naruto, being able to move his body again, ran towards her, to see if there was anything he could do to save her life. And Narumi! No! Please! He was a wreck as he looked over her helplessly, not knowing how to help her. He was surprised when Narumi suddenly jerked her head up to face him, her neck bending unnaturally at a 90-degree angle to face him, while her body was still laying flat on the ground. Blood was pouring out of her eyes, nose, and mouth, and her eyes were wide open, as if she didn't have any eyelids. Why did you kill me, Ni-chan? Why? she asked in an echoing voice. Naruto tore at his hair. What was going on? Why was this happening? No! Narumi! I swear I didn't mean to! My body! It moved on its own! Why did you kill me, Anai-chan? Narumi asked again in a louder voice, as she was raised to her feet inexplicably, as if she were picked up by an invisible hand. The hole in her torso was dripping with blood, and reminded Naruto of what he had done. Was it because I'm a demon? Narumi asked, though her voice seemed to enter his ear directly like a whisper, instead of coming from her mouth. No! I never saw you as a demon, and I never will! Naruto screamed back. Then why were you secretly training to fight demons? Why were you training to kill me? Narumi asked. Naruto was left speechless, his eyes looking at his feet in shame. Why did you try to kill me? Narumi shouted as she appeared in front of Naruto's face, their faces almost touching. Naruto fell to the ground in shock and fear, as Narumi was replaced by the dark red, chakra cloak form of the Sanbai, who still had the hole in its chest. She started to form a black Rasengan in her clawed hands, as she looked down at him. Naruto remained silent as the Rasengan came at him. Time seemed to slow down, as he faced his death. Suddenly his perspective changed to a third-person view of the scene. Only that it was Narumi who was in his place, and the one covered in Bijuu chakra was him. He could see the fear in her violet eyes as she looked at the loving brother she trusted, betraying her trust in him and coming in to kill her. No! Narumi! Naruto screamed helplessly, as he ran towards the two to try to prevent her death. No matter how much he ran, the distance between them never seemed to get any closer. The Rasengan was about to tear through her small frame again, when Naruto woke up from his nightmare. No! Narumi! He jerked up into a sitting position, with sweat pouring down his face. His eyes quickly scanned his surrounding to see if any of the things he had seen was still around him. He was relieved to find out it was just a dream. A terrible dream, but still just a dream. Slightly more relaxed now, he looked around and saw the concerned face of Haku sitting by his bed, and Suigetsu and Kimimaro sitting at a table close by. Naruto-sama! You're awake! Haku shouted out in relief. I'll go tell Mei-sama! Suigetsu informed the others before he ran out of his room. Naruto looked around to see where he was. Judging by the white linoleum floors and the sterile-looking room around him, he guessed he was in a hospital, though judging by the unfamiliar look, it wasn't in Konoha. What happened? Where am I? How long was I out for? Naruto asked with a raspy voice, as his throat was parched from not drinking water for several days. You're in a hospital in Kiri, Naruto-sama. Haku responded with a small smile. You were unconscious for several days from severe chakra exhaustion, and what seems to be chakra poisoning. Naruto nodded as he took in the information. Water. I need some water. He croaked in his raspy voice. Haku nodded and left the room to get water. So how are you feeling, Naruto-sama? Kimimaro asked. Naruto tried to move his body, which was stiff after being in bed for several days. His shoulder where the coral had pierced was aching from the surgery he had gotten while he was unconscious, and his wrist still hurt to move, as the skin around his right wrist had been burned off from the Bijuu chakra. To put it politely, I feel like crap. Naruto responded to the bone user's question. Kimimaro gave him the slightest of smirks. I see. Mei, Suigetsu, and Haku came through the door together, a few moments later. Naruto-sama! Here's your water. Haku told Naruto as she handed him the glass of water. Naruto nodded in thanks, as he took the water he so desperately craved. When he finished drinking, Mei began speaking to him. So, how are you feeling, Naruto-kun? She asked. I've felt better. He responded before he groaned from the pain of trying to move. So, what happened? The last thing I can remember is my fight with Yagura. His memories of how the fight ended were a bit fuzzy, as he was in extreme pain and almost unconscious when he collapsed. How did it end? Well, I did what you told me to do. I waited for you to make an opening, and then hit him when he didn't expect it. Mei said with a grin. I see. Naruto responded as he nodded slowly. So, the war is over then? Naruto asked. Mei giggled before she responded. He looked cute with that confused look on his face, and all of the bandages that were plastered here and there. Yes, Naruto-kun. The war is over. How else do you think us dirty rebels were able to get into Kiri? I see, so everything is alright then? Naruto asked. Mei's smile turned a bit flat as she contemplated how to respond. Well, as alright as you would expect a village torn by war for 8 years to be, I suppose. Naruto raised an eyebrow at Mei's response. So, what does that mean exactly? Within the 8 years the war had raged, bloodline clans were nearly brought to extinction, and Yagura's draconian policies left hundreds of people executed for sympathizing with the victims of his genocide. Thousands more were left in extreme poverty with the economy that was destroyed under his reign. Hundreds of people fled Kiri as refugees, and would never return, taking their knowledge, skills, and expertise with them. The Sanbai had been killed with Yagura, and even the Jinchuriki of the Rokubi had abandoned Kiri. Only 4 of the 7 swordsmen were still present, 2 of them still being genin who recently joined the order. To put it simply, Kiri had a drastically reduced population, and an economy and military that was left in shambles. Even the huge infusion of cash that Naruto had donated to the rebel cause via Zabuza would not be enough to cover everything. Mei hated showing Kiri as being weak to an outsider, but there was little to gain right now by bluffing to Naruto. He'd seen enough already, and a quick look outside the hospital would reveal everything anyway. Mei sighed and ran her hands through her hair. We've got a lot of work to do before Kiri is stable enough to start rebuilding our village and economy. It will take a lot of time and money that we currently don't have right now. We need to meet with the Water Daimyo to get officially recognized as the legitimate governing regime of Kiri, and that won't happen until we get this place fixed up enough that he feels safe visiting. So not so great. I see, Naruto replied as he began to think. Could his mission be considered complete? Could he just return home now? He glanced out the window and saw a scene that reminded him of what Wave was like under Gato, though slightly better. Although he wasn't tasked with helping with the rebuilding effort, he had grown somewhat attached to the rebels of Kiri, and leaving them in this state sort of felt wrong. Is there something I can do to help before I go back to Konoha? Naruto asked. Haku, Kimimaro, and Suigetsu frowned when they were reminded that Naruto had to leave them eventually. They had grown quite attached to him, and wanted him to stay. Mei, too, had a strange expression on her face which reflected her complex emotions regarding the situation. She had grown fond of Naruto, but she also had considered some pretty terrible stuff regarding him previously, which made her feel a little guilty, especially with how much Naruto wanted to help. Flashback. Mei was deep in thought with her eyes on Naruto's unconscious form, which was lying in the medical bay of Yagura's flagship, which the rebels had captured after their victory on the gates of Uzushio. Masama. I know he's been of great use to us in the war, but he's really too dangerous. I've never seen anyone so powerful, and he's still so young. We don't know how strong he'll end up being. If we end up on opposing sides, we won't have any way to stop him. Ao whispered to Mei. Mei knew what he was saying was true, but she was torn inside. She would be getting rid of a potential threat to Kiri if she killed him, but how could she kill him after he was put in this state by trying to help them in the first place? Haku was sitting next to Naruto, as she had been for the past day. She had been watching over Naruto without sleep, making sure that he was okay. She had personally bandaged his injuries, and had even removed the coral in his shoulder and stitched it up as best as she could. She never left his side, even eating at the table next to his cot, and only left to go to the bathroom. So Haku was present when Ao warned Mei, and heard enough of what Ao was whispering to be absolutely shocked. Ao-sama. How could you say that? You'd kill Naruto-sama when he's unconscious? After all he's done for us? How could you even think that? Haku gasped out. Do what now? Suigetsu asked as he entered the room with Kimimaro, coming with Haku's food. Kill who? It's nothing for you 3 to be concerned with, Ao said gruffly. Haku ignored him and looked at Mei's face, who looked deeply torn. Mei-sama. You can't possibly be considering this. Think about all he's done for us. Haku pleaded. It wasn't like Mei was itching to kill Naruto. She was actually quite fond of him. Maybe in more ways than she would even like to admit. But Ao did have a point. A shinobi who could quite possibly take on a whole village by himself was too big of a threat to be ignored, especially since he wasn't from their village. When Haku saw that Mei wasn't responding, and looked like she was actually contemplating it, she subconsciously moved to position herself between Naruto and the duo of Mei and Ao. While Mei was stuck in an internal battle and trying to decide, Ao noticed Haku's positioning. What do you think you're doing? Don't forget you're a shinobi of Kiri. Remember where your loyalty lies. Don't make any foolish decisions you'll regret. he sternly told Haku. I know that. But he's a friend of Kiri. Look at all he's done for us. He personally risked his own safety to save us multiple times. I won't let you harm him, she yelled out. Ao was furious. How short-sighted was this girl? He was here because his Hokage ordered him to do so. Do you not see that this same Hokage could order him to attack Kiri, and he'd obey? Even if this Hokage decides to become allies with Kiri, who's to say if the next Hokage will be just as friendly? If he decides to attack Kiri with Konoha, do you really think we can hold them off? They're strong enough as it is. If Naruto joins, who's going to hold him back? You. Are you going to ask him to remember the good times we had together and betray Konoha? Or do you think Konoha will be our best friends forever? Haku was unable to respond, but remained firmly rooted to her position. You foolish girl. This is the world of shinobi. No alliances last forever. Your friend today can be your enemy tomorrow. Just look at our village. Your neighbor who lent you sugar one day is killing your family the next day. You should know this better than anyone. When we see a threat, we should get rid of it when we have the chance, because we may never get it again. Ao chastised. He had experienced more than his share of betrayals and misses opportunities. If he had killed Yugura when he had the chance in the past, he might have never become Mizukage, and destroy Kiri like he did. Well, I'd rather deal with an issue that might never arise when it actually happens, instead of becoming a backstabbing traitor, and becoming the danger we are looking out for. I don't know about you, but I'd rather not be that neighbor who borrows sugar today, and kills your family tomorrow. Haku fired back, glaring at him uncharacteristically rudely. Why you, insolent pup? Ao shouted furiously as he raised his hand to strike her. His hand was caught midair by Suigetsu. Don't you even think about hitting my teammate, Suigetsu said with a stern look. Ao yanked his hand out of the teen's grip. Why don't you calm down, old-timer? Suigetsu said with a smirk, with his hand threateningly hovering over his sword. Ao didn't miss this, and reached for his own kunai. His eyes flicked around in their sockets, watching Haku and Suigetsu. He was a capable shinobi, and knew how to handle those two. The one he was worried about the most was the one with his arms crossed in the back of the room, watching the scene with an unreadable expression. He didn't know how Kimimaro would react, and he wasn't sure if he could take him on with the others. The tension was palpable, as Suigetsu and Ao had their standoff, both waiting for the other to make the first move. All right, you idiots. That's enough now. Everyone calm down before I get angry, Mei calmly ordered. Everyone in the room knew she could easily beat everyone in the room at the same time, and her authority was unquestioned. They immediately stood down. Ao humphed as he walked to Mei's side. These insolent pups! Back in my day, genin minded their own business, and did as they were told. Well, Ao, this isn't back in your day, and some of these genin are genin only in name, Mei responded. Masama, please don't hurt Naruto-sama. You and I both know he's a good person. He's always gone above and beyond to help us, and I've seen him help the poor and the weak, even when there was no reward for it. He won't betray us. I just know it, Haku pleaded again. Well, unfortunately, him being a good person doesn't mean anything. He is an excellent shinobi, and as such, will do what his Hokage requires of him, Mei responded. Haku's mouth opened in shock. No! There was no way. What was she going to do if Mei wanted to kill Naruto? Mei gave Haku a small smile as she ruffled her hair. However, I'm going to go against logic and trust my gut this one time. While it isn't very shinobi-like, I'd rather not revert back to backstabbing already. The days of Kiri being a barbaric, backwater village are over. It's time we start something new. Haku's face brightened considerably, and she gave Mei a huge smile. She knew she could count on Mei. Ao knew this could come back to bite them in the rear in the future, but he decided to follow his leader's decision. She had led them on the right path this far, and he'd continue to trust her leadership. Mei and Ao turned to leave, but not before Mei gave Naruto one last lingering look. End flashback. Why don't you start by getting better, We'll look for things you can help with when you're able to leave the hospital, Mei said with a smile, as she gently caressed one of his cheeks with her hand. She left a flustered Naruto in the hospital, sure to have left him thinking about her for a while, with the way she was swaying her hips as she walked out of his room. At least, he better be thinking about her, Mei thought. Especially after he so rudely barged into her thoughts and stayed there uninvited for the past few days, ever since he first visited her dreams a few nights ago. Back in Konoha. Fu, you always have the best ideas. Narumi giggled to herself as she walked down the busy streets of Konoha to go shopping, both to buy gifts to send to Fu with her monthly letters, but also to buy some stuff for a prank that Fu suggested. She entered a store to buy some stuff for Fu's pet beetles. Let's see, she already has this. I don't think this will fit in her bag, Narumi mumbled to herself as she browsed through the items for pet bugs. It is nice to see you again, Narumi-san. What brings you to this store? Shino asked when he saw Narumi at the store. Oh. Hey Shino! I was just looking for stuff I can send to my friend. Narumi replied with a wide smile. Sending it to a friend? I infer that they do not live in Konoha then? Shino guessed. That's right. She lives in Taki. I've been writing letters and sending her some stuff, and she does the same for me. Narumi told Shino. You would send a girl gifts from the store for insect care? Shino asked with an eyebrow raised in confusion. From what he had observed, girls hated bugs and anything to do with bugs. Narumi asked as she looked through some more items. Oh yeah? She loves bugs. She has like 4 pet beetles. I was seeing if I could get something for them here. She told Shino, before she realized Shino was an expert on bugs, and would have a good idea of what to get. She decided to ask for his opinion. Shino, however, zoned out the moment he heard that Narumi's friend liked bugs, and even raised her own. A girl? Who likes bugs? What? Where? How could he meet her? Shino! Shino! Hey! Did you hear me? Narumi yelled, while waving a hand in front of Shino's distracted face. Did you say your friend, a female, was interested in bugs? Shino asked. Yeah. That's why I asked you my question like 3 times. Narumi said with a huff. I apologize. I was distracted. What was your question? Shino asked. What do you think is a good gift for someone who raises beetles? She already has a nice log and branches for them, so I was thinking if there was something else she could put in the cage for them. Narumi wondered. Shino felt his heart beating faster than it had ever beat before. Oh, if only this girl lived in Konoha. Might I suggest beetle jelly? It makes a great treat for them. It is better than just slices of fruit, as fruit causes fruit fly to appear in their cages. The beetle jelly, however, does not. It is easy to clean up as well, and it comes in a variety of flavors that can keep for quite a long time if kept in a refrigerated area. Some flavors include apple, mango, oranges, pineapple, watermelon, and okay. That seems like a great gift. Thanks Shino, Narumi interrupted when Shino's explanation started to get a little too long. She grabbed several bags of different flavors of beetle jelly, and put them in her basket. Thanks Shino! You were a ton of help. I owe you big time. Let's hang out tomorrow. Gotta go. Bye. Narumi thanked Shino as she headed to the cashier. And honeydew melon. Shino sighed. He wished there was some cute girl that lived here that liked to talk about insects as much as he did. Hi! Narumi greeted the cashier with a smile, as she unloaded her basket at the cash register. The cashier gave Narumi a look, and went straight to scanning the items without replying back, or even giving her a smile, rather scowling when she saw Narumi. Okay. Narumi said as her smile melted away. Why were so many people so rude to her? They had always been cold towards her, but they were straight up rude to her now. That'll be 6,000 Rio, the cashier said as she rolled her eyes. 6,000? Are you sure? The tag said each bag only cost 500 Rio. I only have 6 bags. Look. Apple, mango, orange, pineapple, watermelon, and Narumi was cut off by the cashier. Look, you can either pay the 6,000 Rio, or you can just shop elsewhere. But why? What did I even do? Narumi asked, feeling upset at how she was treated. What did she ever do to her? The cashier scoffed. Humph. As if you don't know. Besides, it's not like you can't afford to pay a little extra with all of the extra taxes we have to pay to your clan. Narumi was confused. What was this woman talking about? 6,000 Rio was thrown on the cash register. I believe that should cover the dishonest prices you have set for my friend here, Shino said to the register as he walked up to the scene. Shino, Narumi said, feeling relieved to see someone who is on her side. Do you have any idea what she is talking about? I believe it might have something to do with the new taxes that were put in place not too long ago, but I am not certain. Let's go. I am no longer in the mood to buy anything from this store. Shino and Narumi were leaving the store with Narumi's purchases, before Shino stopped at the door. If you keep raising prices unfairly for my friend here, I'll let my clan know that we should start looking for another store with more honest business practices to make our purchases. The cashier paled. The Aburaim made up the majority of their customer base. She nodded with a deep bow, apologizing to Shino, as she tried to give him back his money, which he ignored and left. Thanks, Shino. I really owe ya. Narumi said as she walked down the street with Shino, now conscious of all of the negative looks that she was getting from people. It is fine. After all, you would have done the same for me. Shino replied. Narumi smiled when she heard that. She was thankful for her friends, as few as they were. However, Shino said in a quiet voice that caught Narumi's attention. If you'd really like to pay me back, you could tell me more about this friend of yours. He said with a blush, as he hid the bottom half of his face in the raised collar of his coat. Narumi's smile widened. Oh? Is our little Shino-kun all grown up now? She asked mischievously. At a council meeting in Konoha, Hiruzen pinched the bridge of his nose, as the volume kept rising in the council room as the council members argued. He couldn't wait to pass the position of Hokage-on. He was tired of dealing with these grown-up children, and he was definitely tired of hearing them complain about the taxes that were raised to pay back their debt to Naruto. Hokage-sama, isn't there some other way we could pay him back? Perhaps give him a promotion. Or give him some land at the outskirts of town? One counselor asked. He's already a jonin, and was one of the highest-ranking members of ANBU. What promotion do you speak of? Hiruzen asked. The counselor sat back down quietly. We were quick to borrow money from him, even without his permission, and this was when he needed the money as well. To sit here and listen to you all complain about paying him back? Hiruzen gave everyone a glare. That's enough. I wish to hear no more on this matter. The tax will remain until the debt is paid. The discontent counselors settled down in their seats as they grumbled. Now, we've got other more important issues to deal with, don't we? Hiruzen asked. Shikaku stood up to give his report. We've been getting more and more missions from the daimyo of the Land of Wind. This might prove to be problematic. What's wrong with more missions? Doesn't more missions mean more money for the village? Mabuki asked. Well, it certainly is good for our economy, but it's putting a strain in our relations with Suna. The missions that were supposed to go to them are now coming to us, and I'm sure they won't be too happy about that. Shikaku responded. And what of it? That will only mean they are getting weaker, while we get stronger. They already stand no chance against us. If they try anything foolish, it will only give us the casus belli that we need to put them in their place, and impose a new treaty that will be to our favor. Danzo commented. It made no sense to have an equal alliance with a much weaker village in the first place. Hayashi added. If they attack first, we can break the treaty without having to do it ourselves and tarnishing our image. Many of the counselors agreed, and talks of forcing Suna into vassalage were discussed. Hiruzen glared at Danzo. Of course, he would be the one to start a discussion of fighting a war to gain power. And what of the disruption of the balance between the 5 villages? Do you think the other villages will stand idle as they watch a war break out between our villages? We've only just recovered from the destruction of the village, and now you'd have us plunged into another war? Hiruzen inquired. Some of the counselor agreed that Hiruzen had a point, and began to debate with the other counselors on the pros and cons of what was being discussed. Hiruzen sighed as he watched the scene. Why were people so obsessed with fighting and gaining more power? Was he the weird one for desiring peace? Was he getting too old? He knew the answer to that last question. Yes, he was way too old for this nonsense. His thoughts went to Naruto, who he hoped would succeed him, if things went according to plan. How are you doing, my boy? Are you well? How goes the war? Hiruzen wondered to himself. Due to the top-secret nature of the mission that he sent Naruto on, he had not received any messages from Naruto, and had no idea what was going on. He wasn't even sure if Naruto was dead or alive. Like Amigekure, news from Kirigakure was scarce due to the civil war in the area. Rarely anyone went into Kiri territory, as they could die at any moment by being caught in the crossfire, and even less came back out. That meant no news came out of Kiri, and no one even knew that the civil war was over. All he could do was believe in Naruto's ability to always complete his missions successfully. In Kiri, days after Mei's visit to the hospital, Mei sighed as she watched some of her people cataloging the goods that were in Yugura's storehouse. Goods that he had seized from the people he had massacred. There was a literal mountain of scrolls and other things he had stolen, attesting to just how brutal his reign had been. Just how many people did you kill to get all of these? She wondered to herself sadly, as she looked for anything that might have been from her clan. Her thoughts were interrupted by Naruto clearing his throat to get her attention, standing at the doorway. A smile formed on her face almost automatically when she saw Naruto. Ah, look who it is! Hello, Naruto-kun. Hello, Mei. What are you up to? Naruto asked. Oh, you know. Just sorting some stuff, Mei replied as she gestured to the pile of stuff in the storehouse. Mind if I help? Naruto offered as he stepped into the room. Mei shrugged. I guess so. Put the jutsu scrolls over here, the storage scrolls over there, weapons over there, and other valuables in that pile over there. The two of them began to sort through the items with the others that were present. As Naruto looked through some of the items, he was impressed by some of the jutsu that were contained in the scrolls. Say, what do you intend on doing with all of these things here after they're sorted? Naruto asked as he looked through a scroll on some water-release jutsu. Return them to their original owners if we can, or at least to their clans. Mei replied, as she thought about what to do. For the things that don't have any living owners anymore, I suppose we'll use them for Kiri, either adding them to our inventory or selling them off for money. You don't suppose you'll be willing to sell some of the jutsu scroll here, would you? Naruto asked. I'll have to think about that. Mei replied. Why? See something that interests you? A few scrolls here and there. But with so many things in here, I'm bound to find more. Ao scooted over closer to Mei, so he could whisper to her quietly. Mei-sama, you wouldn't actually sell any of our jutsu to an outsider, would you? He could use these against us. Mei scoffed. Ao, if Naruto wanted to fight against us, these little jutsu here aren't the things we need to look out for. I'm sure we've got bigger problems by that point. Besides, we could use the money, unless you have a way of coming up with funds to pay our shinobi, rebuild infrastructure, fund the academy, and restart our trade and industries. She replied. Naruto was able to overhear parts of their conversation and smiled. Money was no object for him. How about I pay 500,000 ryo for each jutsu? If they're particularly powerful or rare, I'll pay double, or even more. That caught Mei and Ao's attention. That changed things. That would be like an A-rank mission for each jutsu, or even an S-rank for a more powerful one, which could potentially amount to a lot of money that could be used in Kiri's rebuilding process. Would you settle for copies instead? Mei asked. Naruto nodded. Of course. And I'll pay for any other interesting trinkets that I might find that you're willing to part with. Mei decided to let him buy some of the jutsu that were more widely known amongst the population in Kiri. Secret jutsu from clans, however, she would keep for the clans, as a reward for following her through the civil war, and also because she felt it was the right thing to do. They continued to sort through the piles of items for the next few hours, with Naruto selecting a few jutsu he was interested in. However, the jackpot for him came when he found a larger scroll. What is this? Naruto said to himself as he unrolled the scroll. It was a summoning scroll. His thoughts immediately went to Narumi. A summoning contract as a gift to celebrate her promotion to Chunin would be perfect. Hey Mei? How much would you want for this? Naruto asked as he handed Mei the summoning scroll. What is that? Mei asked as she took the scroll. She looked through the scroll and realized it was a summoning contract for a summons for a clan that had been wiped out. Ao was worried Mei might agree to give such a powerful tool like a summoning contract all for a bit of money, and watched her worriedly. More than any of the other jutsu he found, Naruto really wanted this scroll. He was willing to part with a huge chunk of ryo to obtain this for Narumi. He was willing to give them jutsu or seals of his own if that's what it took. His hope, however, began to slip away when he saw Mei's expression. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. Mei began. That put the nail in the coffin for his hopes of getting this meaningful gift for Narumi. This is too valuable for us to part with, both from a military perspective and a cultural one. We can't sell off this last vestige of a clan that was once prominent here. Ah, I see. That makes sense. Naruto just waved it off like it wasn't a big deal, but he was sorely disappointed inside. He'd have to look for something else to give Narumi. Hopefully he'd be able to find something else here. Back in Konoha, En route HQ, Danzo dismissed his informant from Suna, who brought him news on Suna's economic struggles. It seemed Raza was forced to sell some of his gold dust to keep his village running, but that was clearly unsustainable. Unless he was able to solve the root of the problem, he was merely scooping water out of a sinking ship. Good. It seems like my connection in the Wind Daimyo's court has done exactly as I had hoped. Danzo thought to himself as he considered what was to come next. The first phase of his scheme involving Suna had gone off perfectly, with his connection convincing the Wind Daimyo to employ the cheaper services of Konoha. They can't afford to reduce the cost of their shinobi to compete with Konoha, due to the costs of raising shinobi forces in the desert, and reducing their upkeep will prove disastrous. If they do so, they'll lose many of their promising shinobi, which I'll recruit into route. Danzo thought with a smirk. If they didn't cut wages and costs, which could possibly reduce Suna into a minor village, they would only be left with only one option: dealing with the competition that was stealing their lifeblood. Suna was on terrible terms with IWA and Kumo from the last war, which was one of the main reasons Suna allied with Konoha in the first place, and Kyuubi was still known to be embroiled in an idiotic, self-destructive civil war. Suna would be foolish to attack Konoha alone, but desperation leads people to do foolish things. However, it didn't really matter what choice Suna would make. Danzo planned to profit from whatever choice they made. If they didn't attack Konoha, they'd be pressured to seek aid from Konoha to keep their village afloat, which Danzo would use to slowly bring them under Konoha's rule. He also wasn't worried about Suna attacking. He knew Konoha was capable of easily defeating them. If they ended up attacking and managed to kill Hiruzen, he'd use his root forces to drive them off and win the gratitude of the village. Even if they failed to kill Hiruzen, he could still put the blame of the attack as Hiruzen's failure as a Hokage, making him lose support, and possibly have him deposed. Now all there was to do was to make sure there weren't any other contenders for the seat. The next phase would be to remove each potential Hokage candidates from running against him, one way or another. Soon, Danzo mused. I'll lead this village to a golden era. I'll lead this village to stand above all others, as it was destined to be. In the markets of Kiri, Naruto walked down the streets of Kiri, trying to get some fresh air, and to possibly buy some souvenirs or gifts for his genin. Maybe if he was lucky, he could find something that Narumi would like as a gift for making it to Chunin. Sure, nothing here could compete with a summoning contract, but Kiri was still known for its quality swords and metalwork goods, so he hoped he could find something. However, after nearly an hour of searching, he noticed that he wasn't having much luck finding any quality products, due to the destroyed economy and the flight of many skilled workers from the village. What the village did have in excess instead were orphans. When Naruto saw the starving kids watching him buy the produce Kiri had, he couldn't help but see himself and Narumi in them. One boy and his sister caught his attention in particular. The boy seemed to be much older than his sister, who looked like she was barely 5 years old. He held his sister's hand as he hungrily eyed the fruits that Naruto was buying, before the growling in his sister's stomach caught Naruto's trained ears. Naruto couldn't just walk on by and ignore the sight in front of him. It would make him like one of those people in Konoha who ignored Narumi and his struggles. "Hey there, kid. It looks like you could use some food," Naruto said to the older brother, as he bent over to talk to the kid at eye level. The kid simply nodded, too shy and wary to speak to the stranger. "How about you do something for me, and I'll give you and your sister all the food you can eat? How does that sound?" Naruto asked as he gave him a warm smile to disarm the boy. What should I do?" the boy asked with wide eyes. "You got any parents, kid?" Naruto asked. The boy shook his head. "Live in an orphanage then?" The boy nodded. "Where's your orphanage? If you tell me where your orphanage is, and how many kids live there, I'll give you guys this bag of fruit I bought, and get you even more stuff," Naruto offered. It sounded too good to be true, but the boy wasn't in the position to be picky, so he decided to answer his question. "I live in that shack by the edge of town. Me, my sister Mitsuko, and around 18 other kids live with Hasegawa-san and his wife." "I see. Thanks for telling me. Here's the bag of fruit, just like I promised," Naruto said, as he handed the boy his bag of fruit. The boy received the bag with a huge smile, and immediately took out an apple and handed it to his sister, who was practically leaping with joy before she reached out eagerly to take the apple. "Thank you, stranger-san," the girl said with a smile that was missing a couple teeth. "You're the best. You can call me Naruto. Hope you guys enjoy your fruit," Naruto said warmly to the children, who ran off to share their gift with their friends. Naruto smiled as he watched the kids share, and decided he would do more for those kids. He'd look into some local grocers and bakers, and see if they could regularly send their products to the orphanages around town. He'd have them send the bill to him every month. Meanwhile, someone else was observing him from a distance too, with a smile on her face from watching the heartwarming scene. "Mei-sama!" Ao called out as he came to her with a letter. "Yes? What is it, Ao?" Mei asked as she watched Naruto summoning clones to carry bags of food he was going to take to the orphanage where Mitsuko and her brother lived. "A letter. From the daimyo," Ao informed Mei, as he handed her the letter. She quickly turned around to take the letter from Ao's hand and read it. I see, that would be a much better idea," Mei commented as she read through the letter. "What is it, Mei-sama? What does the daimyo want?" Ao asked. "It looks like he's understanding of our situation, and wants to formalize my coronation as the Mizukage as soon as possible to stabilize Kiri. He understands that it's not the best time to visit Kiri, so he invited me to come to his palace instead, with an escort or companion of my choice." Her eyes went back to Naruto, who now had several bags of food that he was handing out to the orphans that surrounded him. "I think I know exactly who I'm going to take as my escort," Mei said with a smile. "Oh, Make. Are you sure this is a mission?" Sasuke asked Narumi as he walked down the streets with his teammates. "Duh! Why else would we be wearing mission gear? Why else would all three of us be doing stupid chores?" Narumi replied. "It's just that, this mission seems quite strange. Kakashi-sensei isn't even here with us. Where is he anyway?" Sasuke wondered. "Who knows? For all we know, he'll just magically appear there, and when we ask him where he was, he'll say he came in advance to scan the area for traps and enemies, or give us some stupid excuse like that." Narumi replied. "That's such a terrible and ridiculous excuse, that I can imagine him actually saying that." Sasuke told Narumi. "I guess this is a mission then." "Of course. Why would I lie to you, Sasuke-chan?" Narumi said with a mischievous smile she failed to hide. Sasuke caught the smile and narrowed his eyes. He was suspicious of Narumi's behavior, but he couldn't quite put a finger on it. "I told you not to call me that. Also, let me see the mission details again. I don't get why the client would specifically ask me to carry the flowers." Narumi hid the scroll she was holding behind her back. "Hey! It's my turn to be the leader of the mission. I get to hold on to the scroll like you did last time. Isn't that the rules we agreed on, Hinata-chan?" Narumi asked Hinata. Hinata was caught off guard by Narumi bringing her into the situation. "Why yeah. That's what we said. See? So I get to be the captain, and you get to hold the bouquet," Narumi said as she stuck her tongue out at Sasuke. He just rolled his eyes. Dealing with her shenanigans was just a part of being her friend. "Looks like we're almost here," Hinata said as she pointed at the road sign. Narumi suddenly grabbed Sasuke's shoulder, causing him to turn around. Hey Sasuke-chan, I need to go to the bathroom real quick." "And? Why don't you go? You don't need to tell me these things. Just be quick." "I'll be here with Hinata," Sasuke replied. "It might take a while, so why don't you just drop the flowers off without us?" Narumi asked. "Us? Why does Hinata have to go to the bathroom too?" Sasuke asked suspiciously. "'Cause it's girl stuff. You wouldn't understand. You can handle a little D-rank by yourself, right?" Narumi asked as she began to hop, appearing to need to use the bathroom urgently. Sasuke rolled his eyes and sighed. "Fine. I'll deliver the package and come back. Hurry up and go." "Thanks," Narumi yelled before she grabbed Hinata's hand and dragged her off to a nearby bathroom. Sasuke sighed again. "Leave it to me to complete our missions. They should give me some of their pay since I'm doing all of the work," he grumbled as he headed towards the house they were delivering to. When Hinata was pulled into the bathroom by Narumi, she asked what was on her mind. Narumi-chan? Why are we doing this again?" Narumi rummaged through her supplies to look for her binoculars. "Sasuke's been acting so cocky and arrogant ever since he beat me in that stupid spar during training. He's been rubbing it in my face non-stop, so it's time for me to put him down a few pegs." She finally found her binoculars, and looked outside the window to observe Sasuke. "Use your Byakugan to watch. This is going to be epic. Let's see now, this should be the house." Sasuke said to himself as he checked the address to make sure he was at the right place. He knocked on the door. Hello? Team 7 here with a delivery. He heard some rumbling and sounds of movement inside the house as he waited for the door to open. Sheesh. What's taking so long? Sasuke wondered before the door slammed open. What do you want? The occupant of the house asked as she opened the door. Sasuke's face began to pale, and he almost dropped the bouquet he was holding. Anko looked at Sasuke's reaction and smiled. She loved the effect she had on him. These for me? She asked, as a snake shot out of her sleeve, and snatched the bouquet out of Sasuke's trembling hands and brought them to Anko. She inhaled the aroma of the flowers and sighed a satisfied sigh. Ah, that's the stuff. Sasuke still hadn't been able to say a word. He hoped he could sneak away while she was distracted with the flowers, but he lost his timing. Are these from you? Anko asked with a teasing smirk. She knew they weren't, but she wasn't about to let a chance to scare this kid slide. And then no, Sasuke replied, but Anko ignored him. Why thanks, kid? I gotta show you my appreciation somehow. It's fine. Hope you enjoy the flowers. Gotta go, Sasuke stuttered as he tried to leave. I don't think so, pal. What kind of girl do you think I am? You think I won't repay such a sweet gesture? She asked as she grabbed onto him using her snakes. Get in here. Meanwhile, Narumi watched the scene from the bathroom with her pair of binoculars, before she fell on the ground laughing. Did you see his face? He looked like he saw a ghost. Oh my gosh! I'm dying. I can't breathe. Hinata watched the scene with her Byakugan with a concerned face. Unlike Narumi, she could see what was going on inside Anko's house as well. Sasuke sat in a chair shivering, tied to chair by snakes. His cheeks were covered in Anko's kisses. You sure know how to treat a girl. I think I'll place these flowers right here. What do you think, Sasuke-chan? Anko asked with an innocent-sounding voice. Why yes. That looks splendid. And now could I go? Sasuke stuttered. In a rush to leave so soon? You must stay for tea and snacks. I insist, Anko said with an ominous smile, as she flicked a stick of dango towards Sasuke, which impaled the wall behind him, right next to his neck. Sasuke sat there trembling as Anko went about preparing her special tea. Narumi, I'll get you back for this. You'll regret the day you ever thought about pranking me like this. Even as Narumi rolled on the floor in laughter as Hinata explained what was going on, Hinata couldn't help but be concerned that this could be the start of something dangerous. She just hoped she wouldn't get pulled into this. Chapter 38, The Bloodline Rebellion Part 9. In Konoha, with Team 7, Sasuke kept stealing glances at Narumi. Something was not right. Pissed, Hinata. Do you know what's up with Narumi today? Sasuke whispered to Hinata. She shook her head. I am not sure. She's been in a strange mood ever since we reached the orphanage for the delivery mission. Do you think it's that time of the month? Sasuke asked, only to receive such a threatening glare from Hinata that he shrunk back. He was surprised that someone like Hinata could even give such a scary look. I'll pretend I didn't hear that, Sasuke-kun. Hinata told Sasuke with venom in her voice. What? It was just a guess, all right? It was just something I heard from Shikamaru, he said defensively. I'm just trying to figure out why she's acting so strange today. Hinata looked at Narumi with concern in her eyes, as she watched Narumi's shoulders slumped, and her eyes on the ground as she walked deep in thought. I see you're trying my training method of walking without looking where you're going. Good effort, but you'll need a book to really get the most out of that training, Kakashi told Narumi in an effort to brighten the mood, when he noticed something was up. Her shoulders were still slumped over, but she raised her head to look at Kakashi. Kakashi-sensei? She asked in a quieter voice than he was used to hearing from her. He replied as he kept up the appearance of reading his book as he walked. Do you know where my Anai-chan is? Narumi asked. Oh. So that's what it was all about. Her 3 squad members thought to themselves. He's still probably on that mission he left on since that time in Taki. Kakashi replied as he flipped a page on his book. Still? But that was months ago. He's never been gone for this long before. Narumi commented. Do you think something went wrong? She asked in a worried tone. Hinata walked closer to Narumi to hold her hand and gave her a gentle squeeze to comfort her, and to let her know she was there for her. However, she too was worried about her sensei. I wouldn't worry too much about him if I were you, Kakashi told Narumi. He's one of the strongest shinobi I've ever seen in my life. I can't imagine anyone catching him off guard. His mission is probably just taking longer than usual. Narumi felt a little better at hearing that, but it didn't stop her from being concerned. Sensing the atmosphere, Kakashi decided to call it a day, and let the kids go do something else. Look, I'll write up the report and wrap up this mission. Why don't the three of you guys go off and do something else? Help Narumi take her mind off of her worries, Kakashi suggested. Sasuke and Hinata nodded in agreement. They already had an idea of what they should do for Narumi. Alright then. I'll see you kids tomorrow. Have fun, you three. Kakashi then disappeared in a swirl of leaves. So, what should we do? Wanna go spar? Sasuke asked Narumi. She shook her head. We could pull a pee prank. Hinata offered, surprising Sasuke, as Hinata was almost always just a bystander or a very unwilling participant when Narumi roped Sasuke into her pranks. He realized how much she wanted to help Narumi. She shook her head once again. Sasuke and Hinata's eyes met, and they had a nonverbal conversation with their expressions. Man, that didn't work? Looks like she's really down, Sasuke-kun. I guess we'll have to pull out the big guns then. Surely, you don't mean what I'm thinking? I'm sorry, Hinata, but this might be the only thing that works. Okay, Sasuke-kun. If you think this will work, I have some money saved up. I hope it's enough. The two nodded at each other before Sasuke spoke up. Hey, Narumi, wanna get some ramen? Me and Hinata are paying. You can get as much as you want, Sasuke offered, and Hinata nodded. To their shock, she shook her head once again. I'm not feeling so well. I think I'll head home early today, guys. Enjoy the ramen for me, Narumi told the two in a quiet voice. She walked on ahead, leaving the two shocked genin standing where they stood, and heading home. Sasuke-kun, Hinata said in a concerned voice. Maybe she just needs some time alone. I'll ask my Ka-san and Izumi-Nizan and see if there's anything we can do. Hinata nodded, but couldn't help but be concerned. She had never seen Narumi this depressed before. Meanwhile, Narumi kept walking, until she reached her house. She opened the door. I'm home, she announced to no one in particular. She was only greeted by the dark and empty house. She tossed her ninja gear on the couch, and trudged over to Naruto's room, somehow managing to avoid the mess that had built up in Naruto's absence without looking, in a manner that would have made Kakashi proud. She opened Naruto's door and entered the only room in the house that stayed clean and organized, as Narumi made sure to keep it neat, as she wanted her brother come back home to clean room. She grabbed a framed picture off of his desk, and curled up in his bed. She stared at the picture, a photo they had taken together when she was first attending the academy. A couple tears rolled down her cheeks. Sniff. Where are you and Ai-chan? Please come back soon, she whispered to herself as she wiped her tears. At the daimyo's palace. Do we really need to dress up this formally? Naruto complained to Mei again, as he tried to stretch his arms in his stiff, dark blue Matsuki Haori hakama. Oh, stop it. You're really trying so hard to ruin all of the hard work I put in to make you look presentable to the daimyo, Mei said as she slapped his shoulder. Naruto rolled his eyes. If you asked me, I'd rather be wearing my shinobi outfit. If I'm here as your bodyguard, shouldn't I be wearing something I can fight in? Well, luckily for us, escort can mean more than just a bodyguard, Naruto-kun. You can also see yourself as my date for the night, and I'd say you're dressed perfectly for that role. Naruto's face began to blush a little. A date? This would be his first date ever, and he suddenly felt nervous. How was he supposed to act? Mei saw the reddish tinge on Naruto's cheeks and smiled. Oh, he was just so adorable. Relax, Naruto-kun. I did say you were my date for the night, but we're really here on business. Naruto nodded as he tried to calm himself down with some breathing techniques. Mei giggled at Naruto's behavior as they continued to walk towards the palace. Alright, we're almost here. Before we go in, let's check if we're in a presentable state. How do I look? Mei asked Naruto as she presented herself to him with a slow twirl. She felt slightly nervous, as Naruto looked over her meticulously. She had masked her true intent with trying to look formal and presentable for the daimyo, but what she really wanted to hear was what Naruto thought of her. She knew she was beautiful, but it was something else to hear it from somebody you were interested in. I'd say you look perfectly fine. Everything is neatly worn, Naruto replied, addressing the state of her clothes. Mei was disappointed at his lack of attention at how she looked, but realized she should have been more forward about what she wanted to hear, especially from someone like Naruto, who wasn't the most socially adept person. That's great, Naruto-kun, but how do I look? Do you think I look good? She asked as she fluttered her eyelashes at him, trying again to hear what Naruto thought of how she looked. Yeah. Everything looks good. The kimono looks nice on you, Mei. He replied, not knowing what she wanted to hear. She sighed before she gave a resigned chuckle. Looks like he knew hundreds of jutsu, but he didn't know how to talk to girls. She comforted herself by telling herself that this was part of his charm. Well, thank you, Naruto-kun. You look quite handsome in your formal wear as well, Mei told Naruto as she adjusted his collar. Naruto felt his cheeks get warm again from her compliment, and the contact her hand made with his chest. Thanks, he stammered out. Mei chuckled. He didn't know how to tell her what she wanted to hear, but at least his behavior let her know what he really thought of her. That was good enough for now. Alright, Naruto-kun. We're here. Now behave and let me do the talking, alright? Mei reminded Naruto. He shrugged. He knew he was mostly here to make sure she was safe and to make her feel at ease. She was the one who needed to do the talking to the important figures anyway. When the two entered the court of the daimyo, they could see an opulent party had been prepared. There were numerous tables covered in plates of expensive and exotic foods, and beautiful servers walking around with drinks and finger foods that people could grab. Silk banners, expensive paintings, imported porcelain goods, and other expensive decorations lined the giant hall, displaying the power and prestige of the water daimyo. Or at least that was the intent. To Mei, this was all just a display of excessive and wasteful luxury that would be better spent on other things. But what did she know? After all, she had spent most of her adult years living in a tent, hiding on several secluded islands. Ah! There's the star of tonight's gathering! The water daimyo called out when she saw Mei looking around the party. Daimyo-sama. Mei greeted as she bowed to the daimyo who walked up to her. Ah, yes! Mei-san. Good to see you! Please come with me, the daimyo said as he led her up the staircase in his grand hall, and to a loft that overlooked everyone. The gathered guests quieted down when they saw the daimyo preparing to speak at the loft. I thank each of you for coming tonight. We are gathered here today to celebrate the end of the civil war in Kyuubi, and for the return of peace in our lands. The daimyo spoke. The guests began to clap when the daimyo paused to let them react. We have here with us today the one responsible for putting an end to that despicable and barbaric war, and the star of tonight's celebration. Please give a warm welcome to Narumi Mei, the daimyo announced, as he stepped back to hand the spotlight to Mei. She stepped forward to address the guests. Thank you everyone for gathering here to celebrate the end of the war, and to celebrate a new era of peace for Kyuubi. It means a lot to us, she said before giving a slight bow to the guests. Naruto watched her from below the loft. Even amongst these nobles, she didn't look out of place as she gave her speech, and despite only being 24 years old, looked at ease while addressing them. He was blown away by how elegant and beautiful she looked right now. Meanwhile, Mei could see Naruto from below as she continued to speak, and drew confidence from having 100% of his attention, and his look of all. He didn't know it, but she had actually been quite nervous until then. And finally, I'd like to thank the daimyo for hosting this party, and celebrating our victory with us. Mei concluded her speech as she turned the attention back to the daimyo who looked pleased. Once they came back down from the loft, the party resumed. Mei rejoined Naruto and began greeting the nobles who came to congratulate her. My, what a beautiful young lady. One noble commented to another in the presence of Mei. Congratulations on your victory, my dear. Mei smiled politely and thanked them, though she was disgusted by how some of them were looking at her, practically undressing her with their eyes. Some of the younger nobles were bolder. Why don't we celebrate together privately? We can rendezvous at my room later, a handsome noble suggested. To most nobles, kunoichi were no different from courtesans, just hired for different things. Sometimes, they were even hired for the same things, though the major villages usually turned those missions down. Mei quickly looped her arm around Naruto's arm. I'm sorry, but I'm here with a guest tonight, so I'll have to decline, she said politely with a smile, even though she would rather have dissolved him. And who exactly are you? The noble said in a condescending tone as he stepped up to Naruto. How dare this low-born scum get in the way of his conquest? Her guest, if I recall what she just said 2 seconds ago. Naruto replied coldly, without any of the politeness Mei was showing. Do you know who I am? I'm the son of the Minister of Commerce of Mizuno Kuni. I suggest you show me some respect. The man informed Naruto. Well, you heard what she said. She declines, Minister of Commerce Sun-sama. Naruto said with a lazy look on his face, completely unintimidated by the man. After facing Yagura and the Sanbai, someone like this spoiled noble could hardly faze him. Why you? The noble growled at Naruto, before he was cut off by another noble who came to congratulate Mei. She quickly turned to greet the newcomer, while Naruto followed her, completely ignoring the now seething noble. The party was turning out to be quite boring for Naruto, mostly watching Mei greet people, and non-verbally chasing off people who wanted to get into Mei's kimono with his presence and small amounts of killing intent occasionally. An hour after her speech, Mei and Naruto were invited by the daimyo to dine with him privately, when the banquet started. Congratulations once again, Mei-san. I'm happy to hear that the savagery in Kiri is finally over. The daimyo said to Mei as they sat at their table. Thank you, daimyo-sama, Mei replied back with a bow, though internally, she was displeased at how the daimyo kept calling Kiri barbaric or savage, while he did nothing to help, even though he could have ordered Yagura to stop the genocide. Now, if I understand correctly, there were some things you wished to discuss with me? The daimyo said to Mei, as the servers brought their food. Now that the civil war in Kirigakure is over, we finally have peace in the village and surrounding lands again. Mei began. However, the war was not kind to Kiri. Our economy has suffered greatly during the 9 years of war, and our infrastructure is damaged as well. We need your funding and support, daimyo-sama. I see. I've actually sent out my own people to assess the situation in Kirigakure, and have had reports for what it's currently like. The daimyo replied, much to Mei's surprise. I'll be blunt, Mei-san. I'm not sure if Kiri will ever be back to what it was like before. The daimyo told Mei. Mei was taken aback by the daimyo's response. When had people come from the daimyo's court? I know things don't look great right now, but we can turn things around. We just need a fair chance, daimyo-sama. Mei told the daimyo. The shinobi population has been cut to less than a third of what it once was, and that's if you count Yagura's men that you currently have imprisoned. The civilian population has been cut by more than half, with many skilled laborers and educated people leaving Kiri for good, or being killed by the last Mizukage. There's absolutely no trade with any other villages, and Kiri is not even able to produce enough food to feed its own people. Roads and docks are in disrepair, and crime is rampant. The last Mizukage waged a genocidal war against his own people, and the one before that let children fight each other to death. I'd say you had your share of fair chances already, and I haven't seen anything promising from Kirigakure since the knighting, the daimyo replied before digging into his expensive meal. But that was in the past, daimyo-sama. We've learned from our mistakes. Mei was not expecting the daimyo to have such a harsh outlook on Kiri, and was taken by surprise. Perhaps. But I cannot waste taxpayer money on such a risky and potentially fruitless endeavor. Mei scoffed internally. And he could afford to waste taxpayer money on gold-trimmed porcelain dinner plates and expensive meals? Daimyo-sama, you'll be able to draw from our pool of talented shinobi for your military needs, should you need to handle things discreetly. Mei reasoned. The daimyo, however, was not convinced. Kiri hasn't been stable for decades now. With Yagura as the Mizukage, we even stopped hiring Kiri shinobi over the years, and truthfully, their absence wasn't missed too much. Our samurai forces can handle military matters, and should we need shinobi, we can hire shinobi from other villages. Mei was getting desperate now. Without the daimyo's funding or blessing, Kiri would shrink to the point that it would become a minor village, or even cease to exist altogether. Please, daimyo-sama, you must reconsider. Things have changed now. You'll find that we are capable of doing things that samurai aren't able to do, and shinobi from other nations won't be loyal to Mizuno Kuni. What if Mizuno Kuni went to war with another nation? The daimyo sighed. Listen. How about we downsize Kirigakure? If we are able to reduce the number of shinobi to several hundred of your most elite, then I might be able to fund them with my personal wealth, instead of using taxpayer money. They'd be under my direct rule, and play a similar role to the 12 guardian ninja of Haino Kuni. I'll even allow you to be the leader. Mei couldn't accept this. This would mean everything they fought for would be for nothing. They won't be able to rebuild their clans, and their heritage of the village would be lost. The civilians who believed in them and followed them would be forced to relocate. And the remaining shinobi would be firmly under the rule of the daimyo, instead of being allowed to run their affairs in an autonomous village as they had been. Daimyo-sama, Mei begged. Please at least give us a 5-year period to show you that putting your faith in us will be worth it. And what do you expect to be able to do in 5 years? Do you have a concrete plan? What are your goals for the 5-year period? How do you expect to ramp up your food production and kickstart your economy? How much money do you think you need? 1 billion ryo? 1 trillion? The daimyo asked dismissively. Mei wasn't able to reply right away. Kyuri was in a worse state than she had expected, and while she had plans for better policies, didn't know how to stimulate trade and kickstart their economy. Her plans banked on getting missions from the daimyo again, and without his cooperation, nothing would take off. That was when Naruto interjected. Well, Kyuri is currently in the process of finalizing a trade deal with Wave and the Wave Shipping Company. The shinobi of Kyuri are probably the most battle-hardened forces on the continent, and the daimyo of Wave recognizes this and is interested in hiring their services. In exchange for patrolling shipping lanes and protecting their merchants and fishermen, Wave will give reduced tariffs for Kyuri, and will help grow Kyuri's fishing industry, as well as help get their products out for trade at a reduced price. I imagine in a couple years, the fishing industry will be able to help feed the people of Kyuri, as well as produce a surplus for trade. The president of Wave Shipping Company also proposed a deal where they would provide raw materials to Kyuri, and the skilled smiths of Kyuri will create high-quality tools which they can also export. The friendly rates for Kyuri will make sure that Kyuri will get goods at a cheaper price, while selling Kyuri products at a higher price, until Kyuri is stable. Mei was shocked. What the hell was Naruto talking about? She had never heard anything regarding this before. I see. That could prove to be helpful. The daimyo said after some thinking. Who is this, Mei-san? Is this your advisor? I'm Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto of Kanahigakure. I'm here under the orders of the Hokage, who believes in Mei-san's vision for Kyuri, and seeks an alliance with Kyuri. I'm here as his representative. Naruto answered instead. Namikaze Uzumaki? The daimyo repeated to himself. So he was the son of the Yondaime Hokage and a member of the main branch of the Uzumaki clan? That meant he was of noble birth himself, and he even appeared to have the full backing of the Hokage, who himself had a very high standing with the daimyo of Hai no Kuni. This meant his words had weight to them. This changed things. Kyuri forces were being recognized for their experience, and with the right kind of publicity, could drive up Mizu no Kuni's military prestige. Kyuri would also be gaining 2 new alliances in Wave and Konoha, which would stabilize Kyuri and improve their economic situation drastically. This could be used to his advantage for better relations with Hai no Kuni and Nami no Kuni. Maybe Kyuri wasn't a lost cause after all. Well, in that case, perhaps I can allocate some funding to facilitate these things which could benefit both Kirigakure and Mizu no Kuni as a whole. I'm sure my ministers can agree this will be beneficial for everyone involved. The daimyo stated. If you can bring me the signed agreements with both Konoha and Wave, I'll be able to convince my council to allocate our funds to Kyuri. Until then, I shall donate some funds from my personal treasury to help with the rebuilding efforts. I'll see if I can visit Kyuri soon to declare you as the Godame Mizukage, Mei-san. Thank you, daimyo-sama. Mei was starting to have hope again. She looked at Naruto with gratefulness visible in her eyes. However, there was one thing at the back of her mind. She knew Hiruzen was interested in an alliance. What she didn't know was what Naruto was talking about regarding Wave. Was he making things up to convince the daimyo, in Tsunade and Shizen's house ***? Knock. 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 Shizen's eyes opened at the sound of pounding at their doors. Knock. 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 Shizen. Tsunade yelled out from her room. Can you check who's trying to break down our door at this time? Shizen rolled her eyes as she got out of bed. What was keeping Tsunade from checking herself? Knock. 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 Yes. Coming. Just a moment. Shizen replied as she shuffled towards the door. Yes? What is it? Shizen asked as she opened the door, only to be surprised to see Narumi at her door. Narumi-chan? What are you doing here at this time of the night? Shizen asked in surprise. Sniff, Nei-chan. When Shizen saw that Narumi appeared to have been crying, all of her drowsiness vanished. She immediately pulled Narumi into the house and closed the door. She sat Narumi down at the couch and threw a blanket over her shoulders. She created a shadow clone to create a cup of hot chocolate before she sat down next to Narumi and put an arm around her shoulder. Narumi-chan. What's wrong? Shizen asked. Sniff, I don't know. It just hit me harder today than the other days. Narumi told Shizen. What hit you harder today? Why don't you start from the beginning, Narumi-chan? Shizen said in a calm and soothing tone, as she put her hand comfortingly on Narumi's cheek. Narumi nodded as she leaned into Shizen for comfort. You know how my Nai-chan has been on his mission for a while now? Shizen nodded. He used to go on missions all the time, but he's never been gone for this long. I'm worried something might have happened to him. Nei-chan, he's all I have in this world, I can't lose him. I don't know what I'll do if... Narumi started to cry again. Shizen hugged Narumi and patted her back. Sure, don't worry, Narumi-chan. I'm sure he's alright. Humph, alright? As if anybody can hurt that kid. Tsunade commented as she stepped into the living room with Shizen's clone. That little brat is strong enough to handle himself. Shizen's clone handed Narumi her cup of hot chocolate before it dispelled itself. But Bachan, if he's alright, what's taking him so long to come back? He's never been gone for this long. I wish I could go out there to look for him. Tsunade ignored Narumi calling her by the honorific she hated, since Narumi seemed to be distraught. She sat down by Narumi on her other side. Don't worry about Naruto, Narumi-chan. That kid is too stubborn to leave you here alone and die off somewhere. Shizen slapped Tsunade's back at her untactful comment, but Narumi didn't seem to mind. Listen, you know the Sannin, right? Tsunade ignored Shizen's glare and asked Narumi. The San what? Narumi asked in confusion. Tsunade felt a vein twitch on her forehead. They didn't teach about the Sannin in school anymore? The disrespect. The Sannin. The 3 legendary ninja of Konoha? Tsunade asked again for confirmation. Narumi looked confused. Tsunade sighed. Well, that's not important. The point is, they're strong enough to handle anyone, but Naruto was strong enough to beat one when he was 14. Do you really think someone was able to hurt him so bad that he can't return to you? Don't you have faith in your brother's ability? I guess you're right. I should believe in him more. He'll definitely return. It's just that I miss him so much. Today, I went home, and when I saw the empty house again, it just hit me really hard. I miss having him home to greet me, like when I used to go to the academy. I know it's difficult right now, Narumi-chan, but he'll be back soon, and if you don't like coming home to an empty house, why don't you stay with us? Shizen asked. That's fine with you, right? Tsunade-sama? Welp. There goes all semblance of peace and quiet. But she wasn't about to turn down her favorite niece. Of course. You are always welcome at our house. And I mean always. You can grab your stuff tomorrow. For tonight you can wear the pajamas you leave here for girls' night. We'll all sleep in the living room tonight. Tsunade told Narumi with a warm smile. Sniff, like a sleepover? Narumi asked. Tsunade and Shizen both smiled at her. They loved the adorable little redhead. Of course. We'll have a sleepover every day until Naruto comes home. Narumi gave them a smile, as she wiped her tears. Thanks, Ba-chan. Nei-chan. I'll go get changed. She ran to get her pajamas. And stop calling me Ba-chan. In one of the daimyo's guest rooms, Naruto was in his king-sized bed, thinking about the night's events while digesting his food. He was happy to have some good food again, after eating ration bars and camp cooking for months, and happy to be sleeping in a nice bed again, after sleeping in sleeping bags. He was about to fall asleep, when he heard his door creak open. He immediately unsealed the kunai, and held it under his pillow, pretending to be sleeping. He stretched out his senses, until he felt a familiar chakra signature. Mei? What is she doing here? Naruto-kun? Are you sleeping? Mei whispered as she closed the door and tiptoed into the room. Mei? What are you doing here at this time of night? Naruto asked in surprise as he sat up. She sat herself at the foot of his bed. I couldn't sleep, so I visited you. Now put that kunai away, will you? He sealed the kunai back into the seal on his palm. So, what's keeping you up? He asked Mei. There was a lot on my mind, so I couldn't sleep. Then I decided I could use some company, but you were the only person here that I wanted to see. Hope you don't mind. Mei replied. No, not at all. Make yourself comfortable. Naruto told Mei as he got up to light a candle. Don't mind if I do, Mei said as she lied down on Naruto's bed while he lit a candle. Naruto placed the candle on the bedside table and sat on the edge of his bed. So, you want to talk about what you're thinking about? He asked. Mei gave him a playful smile. Not until you lay down too. I feel bad for stealing your bed. He felt weird laying down next to Mei, in a dark bedroom, with just the two of them, but he decided to humor her and lied down on the very edge of the bed, to keep the maximum amount of space between them. So? She rolled over onto her belly, facing Naruto as she lied perpendicular to him, resting her head on her crossed arms, as she bent her legs at the knees and gently kicked her legs back and forth. Naruto felt his breath hitch when he looked at Mei. Why was she acting so casual tonight, and why did she look so damn cute doing so? And what was this weird feeling he was feeling in his chest? Well, first of all, Naruto-kun, I'd like to thank you for being such a good escort tonight, scaring off those lecherous perverts. Mei started. Oh, of course. It was clear that you didn't like the way they were staring at you like something to be conquered. He replied as he began nervously twiddle his thumbs as he stared straight at the ceiling. My. Such a gentleman, aren't you? Did they make you feel jealous? Mei teased in a seductive voice. She loved watching how uncomfortable she made Naruto. Naruto struggled to reply, as his toes curled under the blankets. She needed to stop playing this game before he burst a blood vessel, or something. Her voice became a little more serious as she rolled over and used Naruto's firm stomach as a pillow, forming a T shape when seen from above, staring at the ceiling as well. I was wondering, what was that whole thing about Wave? As far as I know, we don't have any ongoing negotiations with Wave. You're right, there aren't any negotiations with Wave. Naruto replied. Mei sat up immediately, and turned to look at him. So, you're telling me you made that up to convince the daimyo to support us? Naruto-kun. Well, I didn't make it up completely. That's a real deal you can take, Naruto said calmly. She raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I know someone who knows both the daimyo of Wave and the president of Wave Shipping Company. They owe that person a favor, and that person would do anything for me, so all I gotta do is ask. He replied. You're banking a lot on some assumptions, Mei argued. What are you going to do if that person decides not to ask them? Or if they turn him down? Naruto-kun, this was quite irresponsible of you. The blonde just smirked. He pulled out 2 papers, that was marked with the official seal of the Wave Shipping Company, and the daimyo of Wave. I already asked, and they drafted the papers. So, all you gotta do is sign, Naruto said as he handed over the papers. Mei took the papers from his hand, and started to read over the agreements. They were just as Naruto had said to the daimyo, and seeing the actual numbers made her eyes widen. This was almost too good to be true. How and when did you manage to get these? She asked in shock. He just smirked. I have my ways. He had secretly sent out clones to Wave during his recovery, and they brought it back via Haration, all without anyone noticing. So, are you going to sign those or what? Mei reached over to place the papers on the bedside table. She then looked at Naruto in the eye before asking, why do all this? Why go so far to help us? To help me? Did the Hokage tell you to do this? He shook his head. It's not like that. Then why? Mei asked again. I am not sure. I guess I just felt like it. I guess I got close to you guys while I was here. After all of the tough times we went through, I want everyone to finally be happy. I want you to be happy. I don't really get it, but it is what it is. He answered. Mei gave him a warm smile as she stroked his cheek softly. Naruto's face turned red again, and turned his face away from her in embarrassment. However, Mei grabbed him by his chin and turned his face towards her, before she planted a kiss on his cheek. What was that? Naruto stammered out, as he felt his cheeks tingle. That was me thanking you for being such a sweetheart. She replied with an affectionate smile. SW sweetheart? He had heard a lot of names, like asshole or jerk, but sweetheart. That was not something he was used to hearing. At least not since his parents died. Yes, sweetheart. Now why don't you tell me more about how you'd like to see me be happy? Mei asked as she lied back down, using his chest as a pillow. Naruto gulped. Why was his throat feeling so parched? What the hell was going on? What do you mean? Mei started to trace circles on his chest with her finger. You know, things like why you want to see me happy? I guess I just like seeing you happy. It just doesn't feel right when you're unhappy. I like to see you smile. You have a very pretty smile, after all. Naruto told Mei, who couldn't help the small tinge of red from appearing on her cheeks. Is it just my smile that's pretty? Mei asked teasingly, trying to get more out of him. He shook his head. No, everything about you beautiful. It's just that your smile is what I appreciate the most. It does something to me, but I don't really quite get what it is, he said awkwardly. She was almost straight on blushing, but she still wanted to tease him more. Now, Naruto-kun. Let's not get too naughty here. I'm not sure that's the kind of thing you want to share with a lady. I'm flattered, but I'm going to have to watch out if little Naruto stands at attention every time I smile. Naruto's face resembled Narumi's hair. That's not what I meant. It's more of a warm feeling in my chest, okay? She smiled cheekily. Oh, is that so? So you're saying I don't turn you on? I'm not attractive enough? She lifted one leg onto Naruto and squeezed her chest together as she breathed on his neck. Naruto gulped again, but there was no saliva in his mouth to swallow. He covered his crotch with one hand and tried to hold himself back, but his body betrayed his mind and reacted. That's not it at all. Naruto choked when Mei kissed his neck. What was it you were trying to say? Mei cooed in his ear. Mei, I don't know what you're doing, but I think we should stop. I feel strange. I feel hot all over. I can't think straight. I'm dizzy. Only fair that you feel that way too, after you did that to me first. Mei whispered in his ear in a suggestive tone. Huh? When did I do that to you? Naruto asked in surprise. You've been doing it to me this whole time, she replied with a seductive smile. What? Naruto sat up in confusion. Sure, enough about that, Mei said as she sat up and put a finger on Naruto's lips to hush him. Now, why don't we get back to how you want to see me happy? Mei cooed as she slipped her nightwear off of one shoulder. Naruto's eyes widened to their maximum size, and it took all of his control to not have blood gushing from his nose. Mei leaned in to grab his chin, and planted a deep, hungry kiss on his lips. Naruto felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up, and felt a jolt of electricity shoot through his whole body. He felt like he was floating on a cloud. When Mei pulled her head back, Naruto's head subconsciously followed her forward, trying to get more, before he caught himself. He couldn't believe his first kiss was with a woman as beautiful as Mei. He touched his lips in disbelief, which felt like they were tingling. It had felt amazing. He couldn't imagine anything feeling better than how Mei had just made him feel. Mei smiled at the effect she had on Naruto. Before she slipped the other shoulder of her nightwear off, it slowly slipped down her arm until her kimono-style nightwear was hanging off at her elbow joints, exposing her generous bosom. Now why don't I show you what you can do to make me happy? He nodded stupidly as he allowed Mei to take off his own top. Naruto knew at that moment that there would definitely be something that felt better than that kiss. The next morning when Mei's green eyes opened up, she was greeted by the snoring form of Naruto, who had one hand on his stomach, and the other one wrapped around her shoulders as he slept. The memories of what they did the night before came flooding in, and she felt her cheeks burn. She couldn't believe she was no longer a virgin, but she had no regrets. Everything felt so right. She cuddled even closer to him, and rested her head on the crook of his neck, as she breathed in his scent. It was now obvious. She was officially in love with this incredibly powerful, but socially awkward blonde man next to her. She imagined a life where she could wake up like this every morning, and felt incredible contentment. She enjoyed his warmth and the feeling of comfort that he evoked in her, and she slowly fell back asleep with a content smile on her face. A few minutes after she fell back asleep, it was Naruto's turn to wake up. His blue eyes blinked a few times as his mind followed his body in waking up. Did he just have the most amazing dream, or did last night actually happen? He turned his gaze to the beautiful person who was cuddled up to him, which confirmed that last night did, in fact, happen. For the first time in his life since his parents' death, he felt almost whole. He used his arm that was wrapped around her to lovingly stroke her auburn hair. His mind went back to the times when his parents were still alive. He would sometimes enter their room in the morning, and find them cuddling as they slept like he was doing with Mei. He looked at Mei once again, and saw the content smile on her sleeping face. To him, that smile was more beautiful than any of the other smiles he had ever seen in his life, including Mei's other smiles. He planted a kiss on her forehead before he closed his eyes, content. He allowed himself to drift off to sleep, hoping to enjoy this moment of his life a little longer. In the Kyuubi dungeon, Zao was kept occupied in Mei's absence, sorting through the thousands of prisoners they had. He had to first sort through the shinobi that had surrendered to them after the Battle of the Gates of Uzushio, weeding out the fanatical bloodline haters from those who were sort of roped into Yagura's forces. Then he had to sort through the prisoners that were put in the dungeons by Yagura, separating the true criminals and dangerous prisoners from those who were sent there for being bloodline sympathizers. "Put that man back in the cells. I'm putting him in the list for execution," Ao told a guard, who shoved an angry-looking man back into his cell. "One more cell, and I'm taking a break. Talking to these insane bastards is tiring," Ao commented to the guard. He looked at his list, writing an X next to the last man he had screened. He looked at the next name on the list and gasped. Nizu. He rushed over to the cell the guard was about to open, and saw a man lying on the cold prison ground, staring at the ceiling. "Nizu? Is that you?" Ao called out. The man seemed to stir at hearing his name. "Ao?" When the man got up to get closer, Ao was shocked by what he saw. His old friend Nizu had been reduced to a gaunt, tired-looking man, who looked 10 years older than his actual age. He had only been in prison for a couple months, but his mental anguish and torn spirit had broken him down quickly. He didn't know what had happened to his wife and child, and knowing his decisions caused the death of thousands of people was weighing down heavily on him, and he stopped taking care of himself. "Nizu, what the hell happened to you?" Ao asked. Nizu looked down in shame. He didn't know how to tell Ao. Chapter 39, The Bloodline Rebellion Part 10. Kyuubi Council Meeting. Mei sat at the head of the table in the council meeting hall, overseeing a council meeting, which was comprised of various shinobi and civilian leaders. It was an even mix of clan heads who were elevated to clan head status for being the closest surviving member of the original clan heads, leading civilians or guild masters who were chosen for their expertise in economic or infrastructural matters, and some of the more capable and non-bloodline hating shinobi from the loyalist faction who were there to show that Mei would be showing mercy to those who surrendered. Ever since Mei had returned from the capital a few days ago, she had quickly gone about implementing changes in policy, especially regarding the leadership of Kyuubi. She had learned from the Sandaime Mizuki's mistakes in creating a bloodline caste system, and tried her best to have equal representation for both shinobi and civilians. Though she was not oblivious to the tension between the clan heads from bloodline-bearing clans and the pardoned loyalist shinobi, Mei was still in a good mood from her time in the capital, and the things she gained from it. She glanced across the table and met eyes with Naruto, who was present as an observer, and he responded by giving her a smile and a nod. Ao looked over the table, making sure that everyone was present, before he stood up to address the new Council of Kyuubi. "Now that everyone has been accounted for, the council session will now begin." He gave the floor to Mei, who nodded in appreciation to Ao, who nodded back before sitting down. "So, I'm sure what you all want to hear about first is about my meeting with the daimyo, and the direction our village will take in regards to the rebuilding of the village," Mei began, and the council members nodded. "The daimyo has agreed to start sending missions our way again, as soon as Kyuubi is stable enough to send out shinobi for missions, and to give us funding once again," Mei announced, and people let out the breaths they had subconsciously been holding. They were relieved to know the lifeblood of the village had been secured. He was also convinced to generously donate money from his own treasury towards the reconstruction efforts of the building to help us get on our feet faster. She continued, brightening the tense atmosphere of the council with her good news. "This is great news, Mei-sama," one of the civilian councilors commented. "It is reassuring to know we have the daimyo's support once more." "How were you able to convince the daimyo?" one former loyalist asked in curiosity. Previous talks with the daimyo weren't so fruitful. Mei smiled as she glanced at Naruto. "Well, we had some help," she mentioned as she gestured towards Naruto. Many of the council members who were unfamiliar with him looked at him in confusion. And who exactly is he?" some of the civilians asked. However, the shinobi who had heard the rumors of his origin were surprised. "Isn't he from Konoha?" Mei nodded. "He is indeed from Konoha. Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto here was sent here on a secret mission to help us, with the intention of forming an alliance with us." Some of the loyalists were uncomfortable around Naruto when they heard his lineage, and were even more uncomfortable with the fact that Konoha was involved in overthrowing another village's regime. The rebels, however, smiled in approval. He had gone through the same struggles with them, eating the same low-quality food, sleeping in the same conditions, and shedding blood with them. They almost considered him one of their own. I can see that some of you are uncomfortable with this alliance. And I understand why. But know that it was this alliance that convinced the daimyo that Kiri will be stable enough for him to invest in. Mei reminded everyone. The former loyalists begrudgingly accepted, though they were still wary of Naruto. As for those who doubt Naruto's intentions, here's the next bit of good news. Mei continued. Naruto here was able to use his connections in Nami no Kuni to broker an alliance and trade deals between Kiri and Wave. Murmurs broke out in the council, some surprised at his large contribution and grateful, while some were still suspicious. What were the terms like exactly? One of the suspicious counselors asked. Mei brought out the contracts and handed them to the counselor. Why don't you read it out loud for us? He took the papers and began reading out the points of the agreement. In addition to an alliance, the daimyo of Nami no Kuni is willing to lend us both fishing vessels and personnel to help us grow our fishing industry, to help us produce more food for our citizens, and to create a surplus for trade, until we can produce enough of our own fishing vessels and personnel. These are quite generous terms. What do they want in return? Someone asked. Nothing, I suppose. It doesn't say. The counselor reading the agreement replied. Discussions broke out amongst the counselors once again. Of course, they'd offer an agreement like that. They're just a minor nation with no shinobi presence. The alliance itself is the benefit. Allying themselves with one of the 5 major villages is good for them. One counselor commented. Mangetsu rolled his eyes. Where have you been for the past 10 years? Are you sure it was Kiri? Have you seen the state of our village? We can't even provide enough food for everyone. Our shinobi forces are no bigger than a minor villages like Kusa. We can hardly call ourselves one of the big 5 right now. I don't know where this arrogance is coming from. Learn to be grateful for once, you dumbass. How dare you? The insulted man shouted back. He's right, you know. Ao interjected. You should learn to think before you speak. Perhaps then you wouldn't make yourself look like a fool in front of everyone. The counselor sat down begrudgingly, after being chastised by the second most influential person in Kiri. With Ao's remark, the discussions died down. Now that everyone's quieted down, let me continue reading. There's more. The counselor holding the contract told everyone. In addition to what Nami no Kuni is offering, the Wave Shipping Company agrees to give us access to their trade connections in return for us protecting their trade routes and merchant vessels. They'll also give us reduced tariffs for imported and exported goods. They also agreed to provide us with raw materials at cheap prices for us to process into finished products, which they'll export using their trade network. This deal stands for 5 years, with a 5-year extension if deemed necessary. Everyone present was impressed at the agreement Naruto was able to get for them. This was a steal. The civilians and former rebels gave Naruto a grateful nod, as well as words of gratitude. Even the loyalists had to accept that Naruto was giving them a huge help in coming out of their economic crisis. Mei smiled when the council began to accept Naruto and his contributions. Now that everyone is aware of how big of a help he's been, I'll conclude my report. The daimyo will be visiting the village in a week to deliver the first round of his donations, as well as inaugurate me as the Godame Mizukage. The council clapped for Mei, to congratulate her on a trip that proved to be far more fruitful than anyone had imagined. Now that that's done, I'd like to hear if there's anything that should be brought to my attention. Mei told the council. Councilors began to give reports of the sectors they were put in charge of. Soon, it was Ao's turn to speak. He rose with a grim look on his face. While you've been gone, I've been sorting through our prisoners, both the ones imprisoned by Yagura, and those that we have captured. Very good. How has that gone? Mei asked. Our policy of pardoning some of the less fanatical loyalists has padded out our shinobi forces' numbers significantly, but we still have hundreds of former followers of Yagura who have committed atrocities or have bought into his ideals deeply imprisoned. He replied. I see. Other than the war criminals, we should go over them once more to see if any are willing to work for Kiri again, and put the past behind them. Perhaps their time in the dungeon has caused them to reconsider, Mei suggested. Very well, Mei-sama. However, there's one particular prisoner that I haven't been able to decide on, Ao stated. Oh? And who might that be? Mei asked. Nizu. Ao replied with a troubled look. Nizu? He's been imprisoned? How is he? What's the problem regarding him? Mei asked. Masama. It turns out he's the one who alerted Yagura of our hidden bases, including the one on the gates of Yuzushio. That fucking bastard! He got thousands of us killed! Mangetsu yelled as he slammed the table with his fist. Mei's face was one of shock. He's been a double agent this whole time? Ao shook his head. I've been able to figure out it was only in the last few weeks of the war that he started supplying Yagura with information. He was broken by Yagura's torturing of his wife and child. Mei was torn about what to do with Nizu. She had put him in an extremely dangerous situation by planting him as a spy in Yagura's high council, and he had provided crucial information to her for years. She understood that he was put under extreme pressure with the lives of his wife and child threatened, and she wasn't sure she would have held up either, if she was in his position. However, be as it may, he was also responsible for the death of thousands, and that couldn't just be ignored either. Several former rebels were incensed at his betrayal, and began demanding for his death. Mei wished she could do something for him, but her hands seemed to be tied. Nizu deserved to be punished. In the Hokage's office, Hiruzen sat in his office, going through the reports and information brought by his surveillance on Danzo. He sighed as he burned up the useless reports and recordings. Danzo had somehow learned to behave since the Uchiha massacre, and kept quiet. Either that, or he had found the surveillance measures, and found ways around them. It would be ideal to catch Danzo in a political quagmire to legally end him and his ambitions, but if things don't work out, I might have to take things into my own hands. Hiruzen considered. If his gamble with Naruto panned out, then he'd have a backup plan. He was deep in thought, considering the approaches he should take to trap his former teammate, when a red toad with a pair of goggles around its neck jumped through the open window and landed on his desk. Kosuke? What are you doing here? The Sandaime asked the messenger toad in surprise. I have a message from Jiraiya-sama. Kosuke informed Hiruzen, before he regurgitated a scroll from the storage space in his gut. Thank you, Kosuke-kun. Hiruzen told the young toad, as he took the scroll and opened it up. A quick look at the scroll revealed that it was a report from Jiraiya and his spy network. Hello, Sensei. Some of my informants have been hearing rumors that the war in Kiri might be over. While I'm not certain which side of the war was victorious, most of the rumors seem to indicate the rebels may have won. This might have greater implications on the balance of nations. I'll head over and see what the truth of the rumors are. If there is indeed a new regime in Kiri, I expect there to be a lot of diplomatic visits from other villages, due to Kiri's strategic position. Perhaps we could send a delegation before they lock themselves into alliances with the other villages and try to work something out first. In any case, we'll have to wait and see what the truth is. Jiraiya the Gallant, the majestic toad sage of Mount Miyaboku. Hiruzen chuckled at Jiraiya's antics. He burned the scroll after reading it, to make sure Danzo never saw the report. Right now, Hiruzen was the only one in Konoha who truly knew what had happened. Naruto had been successful in his mission once again. I knew I could count on you, Naruto-kun. Well done. We'll have Kiri's gratitude, and we'll be able to secure an alliance with them in no time. The old Hokage mused. With this, I hope we are one step closer to achieving peace amongst villages. This report also confirmed another thing. If Naruto had been able to play a key role in turning the tide for Kiri as he expected, Hiruzen would have his successor. Hiruzen felt relieved of some of the things that had been stressing him in the past few months, and smiled. At that moment, the door to his office slammed open, and a boy came flying in through the door. Hiruzen didn't turn around, but prepared himself to dodge some blunt kunai, or some other harebrained attack strategy from his grandson. When he didn't sense anything coming, he turned around, slightly confused. Gigi! I just met the coolest girl today! His grandson, Konohamaru, yelled out in excitement. Flashback: a red ball flew through the air towards a group of 5 young preteens who were hanging out. The ball struck one of them in the back of the head, and rolled on the ground. Konohamaru ran around the corner of the street, looking for his ball, which he saw fly this way. When he spotted his red ball, he smiled, and ran towards the ball. He was surprised to see some older kid pick up his ball. Is this yours, kid? The older boy asked angrily. Yeah? Could I have it back? Konohamaru asked. The older kid looked back at his friends, who chuckled amongst themselves and nodded. Isn't an apology due first? You hit my head with this, you stupid brat. The older preteen told Konohamaru. Oh. Sorry. We didn't mean to. I was just playing with my friends, and one of them sent it flying over here, so I came to get it. Konohamaru explained. You hear this, kid? We don't want to hear your bullshit excuses. The boy's friends said aggressively to Konohamaru. But it wasn't even my fault. I just came to get the ball. Besides, I already apologized, didn't I? Konohamaru said in his defense. You don't sound too sincere, kid. The bullies argued. We'll keep the ball if you're really sorry. Wait, but that's my ball, Konohamaru said as he reached for his ball. One of the older kids stopped him by blocking his way. You trying to take it by force? Listen, kid, the ball is ours now, so beat it, before something bad happens. But it was a gift from my Ka-chan. Konohamaru cried out as his eyes began to tear up. But it was gift from my Ka-chan. The bullies repeated in a mocking voice as they laughed at Konohamaru. If you want your ball, you can take it. By force. The older kids then began to surround Konohamaru. Narumi hummed to herself as she skipped towards Shizen and Tsunade's house with a paper bag full of freshly made anpan buns, when she sensed a bunch of negative emotions coming from the street nearby. She headed towards the source of negative emotions, and saw a bunch of older kids pushing around a small crying boy. Hey! Leave him alone! Don't you see he's just a kid? Narumi shouted at the bullies, as she rushed over. Who the heck are you? One of the bullies asked. Help! These guys won't give me my ball back. Konohamaru pleaded to Narumi. Narumi glared at the bullies. Stop being mean to the boy, and give him his ball back, she shouted. The bullies looked at each other before they faced her again. Mind your own business, and get lost, you stupid tomato girl. One of them told Narumi, unknowingly triggering her with the nickname she so hated. And why don't you leave the anpan behind? We're feeling a little peckish, another bully stated with a mischievous smile, as they began to surround her. Narumi held her bag of anpan in her arms, and her hair covered her eyes, casting a shadow over them. What did you call me? She growled out with venom in her voice, which the boys foolishly ignored. I said, hand over the anpan quietly, you stupid tomato. One of them demanded, as he reached over, trying to take the anpan by force. When he was close enough to grab the bag, Narumi smashed her forehead into his face, sending him tumbling back with blood streaming from his nose. When he crashed into the ground, and started to cry in pain, the other bullies finally got over their shock from the surprise attack. That bitch! Get her! The bullies began to charge at her. The first bully that reached her was rewarded with a spinning back kick into his jaw, which sent him to the floor, out cold. The second one threw a wild haymaker at Narumi's head, but she ducked under his arm, and let him pass by her, and she elbowed him in the base of his spine. He fell to the ground clutching his lower back, seizing up in pain as well. The next boy flew at her with a flying side kick in terrible form, and Narumi easily shifted her weight to the side to let him fly by her, before she gave him a devastating uppercut to the crotch. He fell to the floor, crying. Konohamaru cringed and subconsciously covered up his family jewels when he saw that. The last boy standing was the one holding the ball, and after seeing his friends get demolished by the small redhead, he was trembling in fear. Give me his ball, or I'll teach you what happens when you call me a stinkin' tomato. She yelled at the trembling boy, who thought he saw a fire burning in her eyes and 9 locks of hair flailing behind her. He nodded eagerly, and handed her Konohamaru's ball, before he gathered his friends and ran away as fast as they could. Yeah, you better run. Remember what happened today the next time you want to call Namike Zuzumaki Narumi a tomato. Narumi yelled out to the retreating bullies, as she shook a fist at them. Konohamaru's jaw was hanging open, as he stared at the redhead in awe. She had beaten 4 bigger boys by herself, and she hadn't even dropped a single anpan in the process. Here. This is yours, right? Narumi said with a kind smile, as she handed the ball to Konohamaru. Wow, that was awesome. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. You were all like pow. Boom. Bam. And they were all on the ground. You have to teach me how to do that. Konohamaru squealed in excitement. Eh? Teach you? Narumi said in confusion. Konohamaru nodded eagerly. I don't think I can do that. I'm too busy. I've got training missions and I want to hang out with my friends too. Maybe you can learn from your parents or a tutor, she suggested. You're a ninja? No wonder. Also, I already have a tutor, but he's nowhere near as cool as you. I want you to teach me. You must have some cool secrets methods. Konohamaru demanded. I don't think so. I don't like spoiled brats who think they can get everything they want, you know. Narumi told Konohamaru. But I'm the Hokage's grandson. He whined. Yeah? Whatever. Like that means anything. I'm apparently the Yandame's daughter, and I don't get things handed to me by everyone either. I've had to work hard to become strong, you know. It's not like I have some secret shortcut to get strong. Konohamaru was surprised someone turned him down after he revealed he was the Hokage's grandson, but he respected her more for it. Even though he had enjoyed some of the perks of being the Hokage's grandson, he hated how nobody saw him for himself, and only saw him as the Hokage's grandson. I promise I'll work hard. And I won't be a spoiled brat. I promise, Nei-chan. Konohamaru begged. Narumi could see he was desperate, and he had pressed the right buttons by calling her Nei-chan. She had always wanted a little sibling figure of her own. I guess I could teach you a couple small things here and there. She mused out loud. Yes. That sounds great. Please. Konohamaru pleaded. Maybe I'll consider it, if you start calling me boss, Narumi said with a mischievous smile. You got it, boss! Konohamaru shouted, as he saluted her. Narumi giggled. Looks like she got a student of her own now. Just like her and Ai-chan. Alright then, say, what was your name again? Narumi asked. I'm Konohamaru, boss! Konohamaru told Narumi. Narumi giggled again. Alright then, Konohamaru-chan. I'll teach you a couple things every once in a while, but for now I gotta go. See you around! She then waved goodbye to him as she turned around to leave. Here, catch! Narumi shouted, as she threw an anpan over her shoulder. The anpan fell right into a surprised Konohamaru's hands. And next time anyone messes with you, let your Nei-chan know. Nobody's gonna mess with MY minions, Narumi told Konohamaru as she walked away. Konohamaru had stars in his eyes as he watched his hero walk away. She was officially the coolest person he knew. Konohamaru's playmates ran to where he was when he didn't return for some time. Konohamaru! What's taking so long? A girl with her orange hair tied into two very large pigtails, named Moegi, asked as she ran over. She's so cool, Konohamaru whispered to himself. Who are you talking about? Moegi asked. I think that may be her. Konohamaru's other friend, Udon, commented, as he pointed at Narumi's back. Konohamaru turned around to his two friends. Guys. We have a new boss. Her name is Narumi. Eh? His two friends said simultaneously in confusion. Flashback, and Hiruzen chuckled as his grandson told his grand tale of how he met the coolest person in the world. I see young Narumi has made quite the impression on you. The Sandame commented. Heck yeah. She's so cool. I'm going to work extra hard so I can be just as cool as her, Konohamaru told his grandfather as he punched and kicked at the air as he saw Narumi do. Hiruzen was glad Konohamaru met Narumi. Both he and Konohamaru's mother were too busy to spend much time with the boy. Narumi's kind and caring nature would make her an excellent older sister figure for the young boy. I'm sure she'll be a positive influence on you. There's much you can learn from her. She has a very positive attitude and an excellent work ethic. The will of fire burns brightly in her, Hiruzen told Konohamaru. Konohamaru didn't know what this will of fire thing Hiruzen kept mentioning was all about, but he nodded in agreement anyway. At Kiri, the next week much of the main processional street had been cleaned up and fixed up in preparation to welcome the daimyo, who was now carried down the street in his palanquin, as he waved at Kiri's citizens. Not too far behind him was Tazuna, the now daimyo of Wave, and Tsunami, who were also carried down in a slightly less ornate palanquin. They were flanked by the most elite samurai in the daimyo's retinue, as well as Kiri's most capable shinobi, who stayed vigilant against any threats in the shadows. They soon reached the Mizukage Tower and entered Mei's office. Daimyo-sama! Mei greeted the two daimyos with a bow when she saw them enter. You've done a great job in fixing up this place. I'm amazed at what you were able to do in such a short time. I've certainly made the right choice in putting my faith in you, the daimyo of Mizu no Kuni told Mei. Thank you, daimyo-sama, Mei replied as she straightened out the Mizukage robes she was wearing. I can see you could still use a little bit of help though. Luckily for you, we have an excellent engineering and construction department in Wave Shipping Company, don't we, Tsunami? Tazuna informed Mei. Tsunami nodded. Of course. We have a lot of experience in reconstruction and renovation. We can discuss this further after your inauguration, Mei-sama. Mei nodded gratefully, as she glanced over at the Mizukage hat sitting on her desk. The crowd outside waited anxiously as they grew in number. Soon they'd be officially recognized by the daimyo once more, and the new Mizukage, who represented a new and brighter future, would be inaugurated. A few minutes later, Mei, Ao, and the two daimyos emerged on the balcony of the Mizukage Tower to address the people. Thank you everyone who gathered here today, Ao stated to the people, who began to quiet down now that the ceremony was beginning. Today is a big day for Kyuubi, and marks the start of a new beginning. Please, give a warm welcome to the daimyo of Mizuno Kuni, as he inaugurates our new leader who will guide us into a brighter future. The people cheered as the daimyo stepped up to address the crowd. Today we gather here to celebrate a momentous day. Today is the day where the culmination of your struggles and sacrifices come together to open up a new and brighter tomorrow. The daimyo began. Naruto looked up at the balcony, standing with the crowd below. In his eyes, Mei looked radiant in her Mizukage robes, exuding confidence, dependability, elegance, grace, and charisma befitting a kage. He was happy, truly happy, for Mei and her inauguration. However, there was still a lingering sense of sadness as he watched the daimyo give his speech and finally placed the Mizukage hat on her head. Now that she was officially the Mizukage, his mission here was now complete. He now had to return to Konoha. He gave her a bittersweet smile as he clapped with the others. Mei looked down at the crowd, waving at them, for the first time as the official Godame Mizukage of Kyuubi. She smiled at seeing each and every face present, but one made her smile more genuinely than the others. Seeing her love clapping at her with a smile on his face made her special day feel more meaningful. Without his help, she doubted she would have come this far in the first place. However, she was so caught up in the elation of the moment where all of her struggles and hardships bore fruit, that she didn't notice that his smile hid a sense of sadness. The next day Mei and Naruto left Mei's home after a night of private and strenuous celebrating, to get some lunch, and to enjoy each other's company, as they walked around the rebuilding village to become better acquainted with Kyuubi's villagers. Congratulations, Mizukage-sama! Villagers greeted the new Mizukage as she walked around. She greeted them with a grateful smile, and thanked each one of them. The villagers of Kyuubi saw the pair walking around together, and wondered if they were an item. Many of the female shopkeepers and customers commented on how good they looked together, with many men secretly, and sometimes not so secretly, wishing they could be Naruto, and many women wishing they could be Mei. As the two looked for somewhere to eat, Naruto spotted a ramen stand, and suddenly got a craving for ramen. Hey Mei! How does some ramen sound? He suggested. Ramen? Mei thought out loud. It wasn't something she had normally, but now that he mentioned it, she didn't mind having some. Sure! Why not? She replied with a shrug, and the two headed inside the stand. Welcome to Dash. The owner of the ramen stand stopped mid-speech when his wife elbowed him gently in the ribs to make him look up from washing the dishes. Mizukage-sama! Welcome to our ramen stand! How can we help you? Mei gave him a warm smile as she entered. We came here to get a bite. Where should we sit? Mei asked. Please. Sit right here. The owner replied as he quickly cleared the seat directly in front of him. What would you two like? The owner's wife asked. Could I get 3 servings of your miso seafood ramen? Naruto asked after looking at the menu, surprising the owners by the large order. Oh, of course. Would you like an empty bowl so you can share? The owner's wife asked, not sure if it was all meant for him. No. That'll be fine. It's all for me anyway. Naruto clarified with a smile. Mei chuckled as the owners tried their best to hide their surprise. And what would you like, Mizukage-sama? I'll get what he's getting. Only I'd like a normal portion for one person, she replied, as she nudged Naruto. The two owners nodded and got to preparing the food right away. A little later, Naruto and Mei emerged from the stand, with satisfied bellies, and a smile on their face. Good choice, Naruto-kun. That was better than I expected. Maybe I should drop by here more often from now on, Mei commented. See? I told you. You never go wrong with ramen, Naruto told Mei, feeling vindicated in his love for ramen. As the two walked back towards Mei's house, Naruto spotted Mangetsu and Suigetsu walking. Give me a second, will you? I've got something I've been meaning to do, Naruto told Mei, before he rushed off. Mei wondered what Naruto was up to, and followed him discreetly. She stopped a short distance away, and hid herself behind an alley, when she found Naruto speaking with Mangetsu. Hey Naruto-san. I saw you were on a date with Mizukage-sama, eh? Mangetsu said with a smirk. Naruto, and also Mei, who was hiding, both blushed. Aram. We were just out to get a bite together, Naruto said with red cheeks. Anyway, that's not important. I've got something I've been meaning to get back to you, Naruto told Mangetsu, quickly trying to change the topic. Mangetsu wondered what Naruto was talking about, as he watched the blonde pull up his sleeve. With a puff of smoke, Naruto unsealed a large scroll from a storage seal on his arm. Huh! What's that? Suigetsu asked. While Suigetsu didn't know what the scroll was, Mangetsu knew right away. Is that the clam summoning scroll? Mangetsu asked to make sure. Naruto nodded. I believe this used to belong to your clan, Naruto stated as he handed the scroll to Mangetsu. Mangetsu took the scroll, somewhat unconsciously, as he was still in shock. You just hand this over? For nothing in return? Don't you know how valuable this is? Naruto nodded. I'm sure it's very valuable, but it means even more for your clan. It's your heritage after all, isn't it? I know what it's like to have what belongs to you taken away. Mangetsu was left speechless by Naruto's magnanimous gesture, and stood there with his mouth gaping open with his arms clutched around the scroll. I'll still be able to summon the clams, you know. But I thought it was only right that a new generation of Hozuki should be able to choose who signs the scroll next. Mangetsu smiled and shook Naruto's hand. Heh. I appreciate that. I'll remember this, Naruto-san. Naruto greeted the brothers goodbye, and rejoined Mei, who had watched everything take place. Let's get back home, shall we? Naruto suggested to Mei. Mei hooked her arm around Naruto's and cuddled close to him, as they began their journey back. I saw everything, you know, Mei told Naruto. Did you now? He replied. That was a really kind thing you did back there. A lot of people took advantage of Kyuri's civil war to take a lot of our treasures. Many clans lost heirlooms and other pieces of their heritage. I know the Hozukis will be grateful to you for returning their lost summoning. It's not a big deal. Just giving back a lost item back to its owner, Naruto replied, brushing it off like it was no big deal. Besides, I still get to summon the clams, so it's not like I lost anything. Mei smiled as she watched Naruto pretend it was no big deal. He tried to come across as aloof or uncaring, but she saw the kind-hearted man he was inside. He even secretly began sponsoring several orphanages across the village, something that Mei found out. Something that she found to be very attractive. Something that turned her on, now that she thought about it. Let's get back home quickly, Naruto-kun, Mei told Naruto with a blush forming on her face. I suddenly thought of something new I wanted to try. She whispered suggestively into his ear, causing him to leak a trail of blood from his nose. That evening Mei wrapped her robe around her naked body, as she watched Naruto wash the dishes from the dinner he had cooked for them. She had been pleasantly surprised by how good his cooking was, and had rewarded him with something special, namely her, as the dessert. Their relationship had been everything she had ever wished for in a relationship. She loved how powerful and confident he was in battle, but also how shy he was when it came to things like love. She loved how he tried to come across as uncaring, but he had a heart for the weak. She loved how he was a man's man, but also was not above doing things that were traditionally considered feminine, like cooking or cleaning. As she watched him clean up after their dinner, she let her mind wander, imagining a life with Naruto. She could see a life where she'd come back from the office to be greeted with a kiss. A life she'd share with Naruto, appreciating doing mundane things, like sitting in front of fire together, and enjoying each other's company without words. Maybe they'd have a few children together. She chuckled when she imagined a red-haired mini Naruto doting on his blonde little sister who resembled herself. She walked up behind Naruto and wrapped her arms around his waist from the back. You know, you'd make a great housewife, Mei joked. That meal had a mother's touch to it. Naruto rolled his eyes as he cleaned another plate. Now that's sexist. Who says a father can't cook? He joked in a faux angry tone. Mei giggled. You're right. You got me there. She rested her chin on his shoulder as he continued to clean, just enjoying his warmth for a moment before she spoke again. You know, I've been reading my family history, and found something interesting. What is it? Naruto asked. Back in the Warring Clans era, it seems a Narumi woman married into the Uzumaki clan, Mei told Naruto. Really? Huh. That's interesting. Naruto thought as he put down the plate he was washing for a second to think. Could that be why? That could be why you're able to use boil release, you know, Mei told him, as if she could read his thoughts. But more importantly, that could mean you're the result of a Narumi and Uzumaki marrying, Mei told Naruto, trying to hint at something else. I'd say it resulted in something pretty nice, wouldn't you say? Naruto chuckled. Geez, Mei. Coming on thick with the flattery again? Do you really want me to do that to you again already? Mei blushed. Naruto-kun! You can't be so crass to a lady. But I won't say I don't. Naruto laughed as he turned around to return the embrace. He kissed her forehead when she pouted. You know, what do you think about what I said earlier? Mei asked as she rested her head on Naruto's chest. About doing that. I'm down. Mei slapped his chest. No, you blonde idiot. The other thing. You know, about an Uzumaki and Narumi marrying. Oh. Yeah, that's pretty cool, I guess. I wish I had my family record so I could look into it as well, but sadly, that's not happening anytime soon, he replied, not catching what Mei was really trying to say. Mei remembered how dense he could be when it came to these things, so she decided to just come out with it. Naruto-kun, do you love me? Naruto wasn't expecting to be asked something like that, so he paused for a second. What was love anyway? I mean, he guessed he really liked her and cared for her, and they did do those things that only lovers are supposed to do, right? I guess I do. Mei smiled. That meant a lot from this emotionally stunted idiot. Do you think you can stay here then? Naruto froze when Mei dropped the bomb. Noticing him tensing up, Mei decided to elaborate. I mean, you can go back to Konoha and wrap up this mission first. I'm not even asking you to betray your village and become a Kiri shinobi or anything. I was thinking I could ask the Hokage if you can be Konoha's ambassador to Kiri or something. Naruto pictured a life next to Mei. She'd be the Kushina to his Minato. They already had the chemistry, and he was happy when he was with her. He went over the times he had spent with Mei, and he was very tempted to take the offer. However, when he remembered the lunch they had earlier that day, the ramen reminded him of Narumi. He suddenly remembered that Narumi was waiting for him in Konoha. He pulled away from Mei's embrace. I can't. Mei was surprised to hear his answer. What? Why not? I thought you loved me? She asked, unable to mask the hurt in her voice. I do, but I have responsibilities in Konoha. Responsibilities that I can't just abandon. Naruto replied sadly, unable to meet Mei's hurt gaze. Like what? Mei asked, curious to know what was getting in the way of their relationship. Maybe she could come up with some solutions to work around them. My sister, she needs me. I have to be there for her. I'm all she's got. Though Mei was hurt, she found his loyalty and devotion to be endearing. She had to find some way to make this work. Why can't she come too? Maybe we can have some sort of shinobi exchange program to cement our alliance, Mei suggested. Naruto shook his head. She can't. She's not allowed to leave the village like that. She's too valuable for the village for something like that to happen. Konoha wouldn't ever let her Jinchuriki live in another village. Not even Hiruzen would allow something like that. Then what are we gonna do about us? Mei asked. I don't know. It's not like you'd leave Kiri to be with me, right? Naruto asked. Mei froze up when she heard Naruto. For a second, she actually considered leaving Kiri. She'd abdicate the position of Mizukage and live with Naruto in Konoha. She'd have a wonderful life living with the man of her dreams, enjoying a lifetime of lovingly teasing the flustered fool she had wrapped around her finger. She'd actually be happier with less responsibilities anyway. She would prefer having time to spend with her husband and children. However, while she'd be off enjoying her life, Kiri would be the one to suffer. Again. The only person she could hand over the position of Mizukage would be Ao. While he was a very capable shinobi who excelled in all of the tasks given to him, he was more fit to be a second in command, lacking sight of the big picture, despite ironically having an eye that gave him transcendent sight. His overly security-minded nature would cause him to be a paranoid leader, which was not too different from Yugura, at least in that sense. He didn't have the personality or charisma to hold a divided village like Kiri together, and was too blunt and rigid to be effective diplomatically. She was the only one who could hold together this fragmented village, and the only one who had the vision to lead them. And she knew it. She had gotten to where she was now from years of fighting, and from the blood of thousands of people who had died to get her here. To throw that all away for the sake of something trivial like her love and happiness? That was unacceptable. I can't, my village needs me, Mei admitted, more to herself than Naruto. The atmosphere in the room darkened as the two realized what this meant for them. I guess it's over then, Naruto said quietly. Mei grabbed and held on to his hands with her own, as she looked into his eyes. No. It's not over. At least not yet. It's not over until you leave, Mei told Naruto with a determined look in her eyes. But I have to go, Mei, Naruto told her in a resigned tone. Mei tenderly caressed his cheek with her hand. I know, she acknowledged quietly, but I don't want us to be so focused on that we can't enjoy the time we still have left together. While you're still here, I'm still yours, and you're still mine. So don't think about what will happen. Just focus on now. Just be 100% mine while you're still here. Naruto looked up at Mei with widened eyes. She was right. He was too busy feeling sorry for himself, that he almost wasted what little precious time he had left with Mei. Naruto didn't say anything back, but he grabbed her waist, before pulling her into a deep, passionate kiss. Mei threw her arms around his neck and reciprocated, pulling him towards her bedroom again. They'd make the most of the time they had left. At the gates of Kyuubi, the next day Naruto stood at the main gate of the village, along with Tazuna and Tsunami, who had stayed after the inauguration to negotiate further terms with Mei, resulting in Wave agreeing to help rebuilding the village infrastructure, in exchange for future favors. With them stood Nizu, and his family, who was grateful to Naruto and Wave, as Naruto was able to have Nizu spared by convincing the council to exile him instead of executing him, as a form of compensation for his years of contribution. Nizu and his family would be relocating to Wave, where Tazuna offered him a job and security. In order to minimize contact between Nizu and the rest of the villagers, they had been forced to leave early in the morning, and only a few people came to see them off. Mei stood at the head of the small crowd that gathered to greet them farewell, which included Ao, Chojuro, Haku, Kimimaro, Suigetsu, Mengetsu, and Zabuza. While Tazuna, Tsunami, and Nizu and his family boarded the ship, Naruto looked over the people who came to greet him goodbye. He recalled how he and Mei had agreed to greet each other farewell with a smile, and to let each other go on good terms. As such, he tried to mask his pain by pretending to be fine, but lingering to see each and every face he had gotten attached to would make leaving more difficult. He decided he needed to leave quickly. I guess this is it then. Take care, everyone, Naruto told everyone as he prepared to board the ship. He turned around to leave, but was stopped by Mangetsu holding on to his shoulder. Naruto turned around to face Mangetsu in confusion, and was greeted by a scroll Mangetsu handed over to him. Naruto took the scroll and looked at Mangetsu with a raised eyebrow. What is this? It's a copy of a secret clan jutsu. You probably can't use it, but maybe you can glean something from it, Mangetsu explained. It's a token of appreciation for the summoning scroll you returned to us. Naruto smiled and shook Mangetsu's hand after sealing away the scroll. Thanks. I'll try to put this to good use. He was then approached by Mei, who had come in her normal wear instead of her Mizukage robes, making it clear she was here to send him off as Mei, and not as the Mizukage. Here. I've got something for you too, Mei told Naruto as she handed him a familiar-looking scroll. Naruto was shocked as he took the scroll. It was the summoning scroll he had wanted to get from Yagura's storehouse. Is this all right? I thought it was valuable to the village? Naruto asked. Mei just gave him a smile. Consider a fair exchange. You gave us a summoning scroll, so we gave you one back. Now we're even. The clan that used to use that summoning is gone anyway. Naruto smiled and sealed the scroll away. He stuck out his hand to give her a handshake as well. Mei ignored the hand and leaned in for a deep kiss which surprised everyone, as they had been keeping their relationship a secret. She pulled away after several seconds, leaving Naruto's face with red cheeks. Goodbye, Naruto. I'll always remember what we had. She whispered so that only he could hear. She gave him a smile, before she turned around and left with the rest of the Kyuubi shinobi, letting him go with a smile like she promised. Naruto turned around and began to board the ship as well. He turned around to give her one last glance, only to see her back. He gave her a bittersweet smile before he boarded the ship leaving Kyuubi. Mei also turned around to give Naruto one last look, only to not see him. She smiled to keep herself from crying, and turned back around. The ship set off a few moments later. "I'll be at the Mizukage Tower. Don't disturb me unless it's something important," Mei told everyone, before she disappeared in a swirl of mist. At the Mizukage Tower, Mei collapsed into her seat, before the tears began to fall uncontrollably from her eyes. She had barely managed to hold herself together in front of the others, but now, she was unable to keep it in any longer. She wept, heartbroken at letting go of the love of her life for the sake of her duty to the village. Ao was outside her door, about to knock so he could enter, when he heard her crying bitterly inside. He had assumed Mei's farewell kiss was something of a flirty attempt at manipulating Naruto, in order to keep him on Kiri's side should things threaten to go bad. He had watched approvingly, thinking it was smart and clever of Mei to use an unexperienced young man's heart against him. However, as he stood outside of Mei's office, hearing her cry her heart out, he realized Mei had truly loved him, but let him go anyway. She had chosen Kiri over her own happiness. He clenched his fists, ashamed of thinking of Mei that way. She was a young woman herself, and deserved to be loved, but she put the good of the village above her own desires. His respect for her rose immensely, and he vowed to follow her loyally always. On the ship, Naruto sat deck at the ship, staring off into the horizon. His heart ached with a pain that he was not used to, and his mind needed the distraction. "You really loved that girl, didn't you?" he heard a voice ask. "Huh?" he asked as he looked to see who spoke to him. He found Tsunami looking at him with an empathetic smile, as she sat down next to him, and patted his back. "What is this for?" Naruto asked when Tsunami offered him a handkerchief. Tsunami replied by wiping the tears he didn't realize were streaming down his face. "It'll get better with time," Tazuna commented as he appeared on the deck. "Until then, this might help get your mind off of her." Naruto stared at the bottle of sake Tazuna was offering for a couple of seconds, before he took the bottle and took a large chug. "Now that was a man's drink." "Attaboy!" Tazuna cheered, trying to help brighten the mood. Naruto smiled as he wiped his eyes dry. "Thanks," he told the two. He'd never been one to let his emotions rule him. He took another sip, determined to get his emotions back on hold. He needed to remind himself of what was most important to him. "I'm sorry I've been away for so long. I'm finally coming home, Narumi," Naruto thought to himself, as he looked towards the direction of Konoha. "Oh, make. We gather here today to celebrate the life of Narumi," Sasuke told the gathered crowd of shocked people. "What? What happened?" Ino screamed out in shock. Sasuke looked up to the ceiling, thinking about how it came to this point. A few hours earlier. "Man, that was tough. I'd much rather fight some Chunin, rather than digging around a massive garden looking for some lost key. It turned out it was in the laundry the whole time," Narumi complained. Tell me about it." "If you asked me, they shouldn't even allow these stupid things to be missions," Sasuke replied, agreeing with Narumi. Narumi and Sasuke snapped their heads towards the source of the sound, only to see a red-faced Hinata holding her stomach. "Are you hiding an angry dog under your hoodie?" Narumi asked. "And no. I am just a little hungry," Hinata squeaked out, embarrassed at her unHyuga-like behavior of having her stomach rumble. Sasuke rolled his eyes. "And here it comes in 3, 2, 1, I know just what you need. Ramen!" Narumi shouted out with enthusiasm. "And there we have it, folks," Sasuke commented, speaking to no one in particular. "Of course, you'd suggest ramen. Is ramen all you eat?" "I wish," Narumi said with a huge grin at the thought. "I don't know why not though. There are so many kinds. Seafood, curry, beef, pork, miso, and even veggie if I need some greens. I've practically tried them all," Narumi bragged. Sasuke grinned. "I bet there's a kind you haven't tried." Narumi was offended. How dare he challenge her this way? But at the same time, she was intrigued. "And what might that be, Sasuke-chan?" she asked. "I've got it at home. It's actually my favorite kind," Sasuke told her. Her interest was officially piqued. "Really? Make me some," she demanded. Sasuke rolled his eyes. "Fine. Why don't you come over as well, Hinata?" Hinata nodded. That sounds good with me, Sasuke-kun." "Thank you." At Sasuke's house, Narumi sat at the table, her legs bouncing on the balls of her feet in excitement as she waited for her ramen. "Alright, I'm done now," Sasuke announced as he brought 3 plates of red ramen out from the kitchen. "Oh. It doesn't have soup?" It's like sort of yaki ramen? Narumi asked in interest. It's a kind of tomato ramen. My Kasan found it in the imported section of the market. Sasuke told his two teammates. Thank you, Sasuke-kun. Hinata told Sasuke as she picked up her chopsticks. Sweet. Thanks. Narumi shouted out before she began to practically inhale the large mound of noodles on her plate. Sasuke watched with a wicked smile on his face, not even eating his own ramen. He glanced at his clock. Almost time. Delicious. Narumi shouted out with red sauce all over her mouth, and some even on her nose, before she suddenly seized up. And here it comes! Sasuke whispered to himself with a malicious smile. Narumi screamed, as sweat began to pour down her face, practically breathing out fire that would make Sasuke's Gakakyu no Jutsu jealous. OWWW! Hot! Hothathothot! Hoot! Narumi screamed as she began to fan her mouth. Hinata looked at Sasuke in confusion. Her ramen was not spicy at all. Sasuke-kun? Hinata asked. Her ramen is actually a different ramen from ours. Hers is a ramen called hot chicken noodles. Or what I like to call, nuclear fire noodles from hell. Sasuke said with a wicked chuckle. Narumi ran around the table in circles screaming, until she passed out, comatose. Sasuke leapt from his seat and picked up Narumi, taking her to the living room. Hinata followed, and was surprised to see all of her friends waiting there, confused. Hey, what's going on? We were waiting here for almost an hour! Ino asked when Sasuke entered the room and placed Narumi on a table. Did you bring the flowers like I asked? Sasuke asked Ino. Ino nodded and presented him with a bouquet. Perfect. Thanks, he told Ino as he took the flowers from her. He walked over to the unconscious Narumi and clasped her hands together on her stomach. He then placed the flowers in her hand. All right. Everyone! Quiet! Sasuke announced. Everyone was confused as to what was going on, but they went along to see what was going on. We gather here today to celebrate the life of Narumi, Sasuke told the gathered crowd of shocked people. What? What happened? Ino screamed out in shock. Sasuke looked up to the ceiling, trying hard not to laugh. Our dear friend has succumbed to a dangerous illness. An illness known as ramen addiction. A moment of silence for the deceased. He clasped his hands together in a fake prayer, while his friends looked on in confusion, not understanding what the heck he was talking about. Shikamaru? Would you mind? Sasuke asked, making the gestures to tell him to take photos. TSK, this is troublesome. I can't believe I passed on cloud gazing for this. Shikamaru complained. Alright. I'm taking the picture on 3, okay? 1. Asterisk snap asterisk. Hey! I thought you said you'd take the picture on 3. I wasn't ready! Ino yelled out. Oops. It was too troublesome to count. What can I do? Shikamaru replied with a shrug. Sasuke grabbed the Polaroid picture and watched it develop. He snickered as he saw a photo of Narumi's mock funeral develop. Might I ask what this is all about? Has she actually passed away? Shino asked in a monotone voice. Sasuke was about to respond, before he was smacked in the back of the head so hard by a bouquet that he fell on his face. Like heck I am! Narumi screamed out in fury, with 9 locks of hair flailing behind her. Psst! I think we should get out of here. I feel like it's about to get real troublesome. Shikamaru whispered to everyone else, as Narumi stomped towards Sasuke. Outside the house, the friends cringed as they heard what sounded like a little girl screaming in Sasuke's voice. How dare you defile ramen like that? You shall pay the price of your sins. Narumi's voice mixed with a strange deeper voice boomed. Looks like you've already prepared the place for your funeral. Good. Do you think we should help? Ino asked. Nah. He'll be fine. Let's go cloud gazing or something. Shikamaru suggested. Ino was worried for Sasuke, but let herself be pulled away by her friends. Shikamaru handed everyone earplugs when a shrill scream pierced through the air. Help! Chapter 40, A Hero's Return. On the streets of Konoha. I heard he destroyed a whole regiment of shinobi by himself. A regiment? I heard it was a whole battalion. You guys have been hearing nonsense. He destroyed a whole army. Alone. Is it true that he defeated the Mizukage on the same day? Wasn't the Mizukage the Sanbai? He defeated a Bijou? That's crazy! He truly is the second coming of the Yondaime. Guys! I heard he's coming today! No way! We should go greet him. Narumi's ears perked up to the rumors that were circulating around the town as she waited for her minions, nibbling on a stick of dango. She tried to mind her own business, but she couldn't help but notice the massive crowd that began to gather, starting from the gates, all the way to where she was sitting. What's all this fuss about? She wondered out loud to herself as she got up and began to crane her neck to see what was going on. He's here. The hero of the Kiri Civil War. Our next hero of Konoha. Narumi tried to see who this person was, and tried to squeeze through the taller crowd, so she could see who they were talking about. However, when she tried to squeeze through, she was roughly pushed back by angry and annoyed elbows and backs. What do you think you're cutting in front of? Buzz off, brat. I'm just trying to see who this hero is. Narumi argued back as she tried to enter through another opening she saw. Get lost, kid! She was shoved back harshly, falling on her bottom. Oh. Hey! Boss! Konohamaru, who had just appeared on the scene with his friends, yelled out when he saw his boss get pushed to the ground. Oh. Hey, Konohamaru-chan, Moegi-chan, Udan-chan. Narumi greeted them as she rose and dusted off her hands and butt. How dare they lay their filthy hands on our boss? Let's get him, guys! Konohamaru yelled out. It's fine. No need to make a big deal about it. It's probably some stupid stuff. My Nai-chan always told me crowds were for sheep anyway. Let's get out of here. We've got training to do anyway, right? Narumi told her three minions, trying to de-escalate the situation. The mention of training distracted Konohamaru right away, as he was excited to show Narumi the practice he had put in since their last training session. Narumi giggled at Konohamaru's enthusiasm, and ruffled his hair. Alright, my minions. To training ground 7. Last one there owes everyone a stick of dango. Go! Narumi and the three children ran off, leaving the crowd with a cloud of dust in their wake. Those brats. Some people coughed as the dust settled. Hey! It's him. The blue dragon of Konoha. The demon of the mirage. Somebody shouted out, and grabbed everyone's attention. Naruto walked down the streets, cheered by the population of Konoha. Though he hadn't been in a war Konoha was involved in, he was still a war hero, and the villagers of Konoha loved their heroes. After the death of the Yondaime, the Sannin breaking up, the suicide of the White Fang, the loss of the Senju clan, and the Uchiha clan massacre which alone resulted in the loss of at least 3 S-ranked shinobi, Konoha was hungry for heroes. So when rumors began to come up from Kiri about a Konoha shinobi who devastated entire armies alone and was able to defeat a perfect Jinchuriki, the people were filled with pride. They finally had another army-busting, world-beating shinobi in their village again, which had always been a point of pride for them. Naruto walked down the streets with a mostly blank face, only occasionally giving a slight nod to civilians that he remembered weren't assholes to Narumi, but he largely ignored the celebration around him. He hated their two-faced nature, their double standards. How could they hate one child of the Yondaime, and worship the other? He kept an eye out for a mop of red hair, but when he wasn't able to find what he was looking for, he got annoyed, and decided to ignore the unofficial triumph and fanfare for him, and go straight to the Hokage. He wanted to get this over with so he could see his sister as soon as possible. At the Hokage's office, he was inside when he saw Naruto's cold reaction towards the villagers through his crystal ball. Why couldn't he just be a little more cordial to the villagers? Naruto already had the power, ability, lineage, and achievements. All it would take for him to be unanimously chosen as Hokage would be a little bit of likability. Would it kill him to smile to the villagers every once in a while? Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, here to make a report on another successful mission. Naruto reported with a smug smirk on his face, as he appeared in a swirl of leaves. Hiruzen chuckled as he put the crystal ball away. Alright, Naruto-kun. I've already heard the rumors. Let's hear what the truth is. I went kicked ass, helped Kiri find its footing, then returned. Naruto replied tersely, keeping it vague on purpose as to hide the details of his relationship with Mei and his many jutsus that he kept secret. Hiruzen pinched the bridge of his nose as he sighed. I suppose you could make the written report more detailed? I'd like to hear what kind of opponents you faced, what kind of shinobi force Kiri is capable of fielding, and what it was like fighting the Mizukage. I want to see a report on what you did to help Kiri find its footing. And I'd like to hear the truth behind such rumors like you beating an entire army alone with one massive fire jutsu. Naruto shrugged. I'll try. Hiruzen sighed again. Alright. I understand you might be tired from your long mission, so you may go rest. I'll give you a month off, so you can catch up with your family and friends. Your pay for multiple S-ranked missions will be sent to your account, the Hokage told Naruto. Speaking of family, Naruto began. Hiruzen hit a discreet gulp. Oh no, please don't ask about Taki. Please don't ask about Taki. Please don't ask about Taki. Remember my mission to Taki? Naruto asked. Hiruzen cursed the cruel gods up above. Of course. What is it? Hiruzen asked with a nervous smile he put on to hide his fidgeting hands beneath the desk. I was wondering how that went. Is Narumi okay? How about the rest of my team? Were they able to catch Suion? Naruto asked. Oh. Of course. Suion will not be a problem to anyone ever again. Hiruzen replied back vaguely. As for your sister and your team, Kakashi has been taking care of them. If I recall, he was training them on the basics. Naruto raised an eyebrow at Hiruzen's vague answer. He decided not to press the issue, however, much to Hiruzen's relief. As long as Narumi and his team was alright, he didn't really care. When Naruto seemed to accept the answer, Hiruzen changed his mind and thanked the kind gods up above. Is there anything else you'd like to know? Hiruzen asked, trying to wrap this meeting up quickly. No, Hokage-sama. That will be all. Thank you, Naruto replied. He then saluted Hiruzen and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. When he was sure Naruto was gone, Hiruzen slumped into his seat and let out a breath he'd been holding back. Damn. I need a smoke. And a drink. Hiruzen mumbled to himself as he reached for the drawer under his desk. He opened the secret compartment. He needed the good stuff today. On Training Ground 7, Sasuke and Hinata worked on their elemental control as they stood on top of water with a leaf stuck on their forehead, as they watched Narumi train her students. Hiya! Hiya! Konohamaru yelled out, as he spun around and smacked the wooden training dummy. No, no. Not like that. You have to twist your whole body. Remember? You have to be the whirlpool. Narumi yelled out as she lightly slapped Konohamaru's out-of-place limbs with a thin stick to get them in the correct position. You want to keep your body moving. If you throw a punch, and they dodge it, keep your arm flying, so you can spin your body around, and smack them with your other elbow. Narumi explained. Geez, Narumi. They're kids. Stop wasting your time training them, and let them play. I want to spar so I can kick your butt again, Sasuke told Narumi. Hey! Training us isn't a waste of time. And we'd much rather train than play. Right, guys? Konohamaru asked Moegi and Udan. I'd rather just play kickball, to be honest. Moegi replied as she panted from the exercise. Kickball, eh? Narumi said as she rubbed her chin with an evil grin that Hinata and Sasuke had seen on Naruto's face before. Oh no! Sasuke-kun, those poor children! Hinata mentioned to Sasuke. Leave them. If they die, they die. He replied nonchalantly in jest. Or at least what Hinata considered to be in jest from Sasuke. All right. Listen to your boss, minions! Narumi shouted out as she held a ball under her arm. The three kids stumbled towards her, exhausted from their training already. Since you guys wanted to play with a ball so bad, I decided to add it to our training for today. Narumi began. Yay! Can we play kickball? Moegi asked with excitement. Oh, we'll be playing kickball all right, Narumi said with a smirk that sent shivers up the children's spines. Here it comes, Sasuke told Hinata, who looked worried, as opposed to Sasuke's face, which looked like he was about to see something fun. All right, here are the rules. I'll kick the ball at you, and you have to dodge. If you get hit, you have to do the water bucket spinning exercise for 5 minutes. Narumi explained. Now dodge! The kids spent the next few minutes throwing their bodies around to avoid getting hit by a ball which had been turned into a weapon by Narumi, and the speed she kicked it at them. She had created several shadow clones to form a circle around the kids, who caught and kicked the ball towards them from different angles and sides. Konohamaru jumped to the side to dodge the speeding projectile which promised pain. However, in doing so, he got in the field of vision of Moegi, who didn't see which clone caught the ball, and where it was coming from next. When Konohamaru dodged again, Moegi was caught by surprise as one of Narumi's clones blasted a powerful shot at Moegi. She was like a deer caught in headlights as the ball flew towards her face. Her eyes widened and time seemed to slow down as her body froze. Oh no! Moegi-chan! Look out! The original Narumi yelled out when she saw that Moegi looked like she was unable to dodge, and the ball came at her face faster than Narumi had intended. Moegi was blown away by the ball, and flew a short distance away before she rolled on the ground, until she hit a tree stump. There was no movement from her after that. Moegi-chan! Narumi, Konohamaru, and Udon yelled as they rushed towards her body, while Hinata and Sasuke stared on with a shocked look. Narumi was panicking. Had her clone kicked the ball that hard? It was just supposed to be enough to hurt, so they'd have incentive to dodge. It was an exercise meant to sharpen your reflexes that her brother had done with her, but she apparently had gotten carried away. When the three worried people approached Moegi, she disappeared in a puff of smoke, and a log was left in its place, surprising everyone. Kawarimi? The three genin of Team 7 immediately thought to themselves. Now. I don't think you're supposed to throw the ball that hard, Narumi-chan. A familiar voice scolded in jest. Huh! Narumi wondered as she looked over her shoulder behind her, where the voice came from. Naruto stood a short distance away, with a surprised, but blushing Moegi in his arms. Narumi stood there frozen, with her mouth hanging open. Naruto put Moegi down, then put one hand on his hip as he shifted his weight onto one leg. So, are you going to come greet your Nai-chan, or are you going to stand there with your mouth open as an invitation for bugs? Naruto said with a smile. Nai-chan! Narumi yelled once she got over her shock, and she ran at him. She leapt into his open arms, and wrapped her arms around his neck, and rubbed her face into the crook of his neck as tears began to flow freely. Ni-chan! I miss you so much! Narumi cried out as Naruto held her in his arms. Despite almost being a teenager now, she reverted being back into her 7-year-old self when she saw her brother. Naruto smiled as he patted her back with one arm, and stroked her hair gently and lovingly with his other hand. I've missed you too, Imuto. More than you know. Sasuke watched the scene, happy for his friend, and happy to see his sensei and hero again, but there was a sense of jealousy lingering as well. He had once wished he had this type of relationship with his brother, but now his brother was a missing nin who had murdered most of his clan. Though he thought about Itachi less due to Naruto's words to him, his relationship with Itachi was not one you would describe as friendly. Hinata was not too different from Sasuke in terms of how she felt at the sight of the Nara's sibling reunion. She was happy for her friend and happy to see her sensei and crush, but it evoked a feeling of sadness in her heart. She had the largest family out of the three, but ironically, she received the least amount of love and affection. While Sasuke's mother was busy with police work, she was still an affectionate and loving mother to Sasuke whenever she had time, while Naruto was 100% devoted to Narumi, and would drop anything and everything for Narumi. She wished her mother, who used to dote on her, was still alive. Who is that? Konohamaru asked Sasuke as he watched his amazingly cool boss cry like a little child in some blonde's arms. That's our sensei. Narumi's brother. Sasuke replied. Boss brother? Konohamaru wondered out loud. He's so cool. Moegi commented with a blush as she sauntered back to her friends. And handsome. What's so cool about him? Boss is so much cooler. Konohamaru said in defense of Narumi. And not to mention, much prettier. He added with a small blush on his face. Heh. Pretty? You mean that violent mountain gorilla? Please. Sasuke scoffed, as he recalled Narumi after his prank. You really think she's cooler than Sensei? As if that annoying redhead can hold a candle to Naruto-sensei. Sasuke said in defense of his hero. You take that back. Narumi Nei-chan is a hero. She's super strong. I bet she could kick your butt. Yeah, I bet that's why you're hating on her. Konohamaru shouted back. A hero? If anyone's a hero, it's Naruto-sensei. Haven't you heard the rumors? Sasuke asked Konohamaru. What rumors? Konohamaru asked in curiosity. The blue dragon of Konoha? He defeated an entire army with one jutsu. He's supposed to be stronger than the Kages of other villages for crying out loud. Sasuke told Konohamaru. The little Sarutobi's eyes widened in shock. That's him? The blue dragon? The demon of the mirage is Narumi Nei-chan's brother? Sasuke nodded with a smirk. Yup. That's our sensei. He said with pride. Hey guys. I want you guys to meet someone. Narumi said with a smile, though her eyes were still puffy from crying. This is my Oni-chan, Naruto. He's the bestest. Say hi. Narumi told her minions. Hello, Naruto-san. The three greeted, Moegi slightly blushing at her savior. Hello everyone. I'm Naruto. Naruto said with a warm smile. And who are these kids, Narumi? He asked. Narumi's smile lit up with pride. These are my minions. This one is Konohamaru, that one is Idan, and that's Moegi. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Konohamaru? As in the Hokage's grandson? He's your minion? That's right. She's training us to be strong shinobi too. Konohamaru added. Training little kids now, are we? Naruto said with a sadistic smile. Narumi, however, didn't catch on. Sasuke and Hinata did, however, and they tried to stop her, but it was too late. Yup, I think I'm doing a pretty good job too. They'll be kicking some major but pretty soon. I see. So I'm assuming you've been training yourself as diligently as you've been training these kids, right? Naruto asked. Oh, you have no idea. We're pretty strong now. Much stronger than when you left us in Taki. We learned a lot from that mission, Narumi replied. Sasuke shot her a glare to remind her not to tell Naruto what happened, which Narumi didn't fully catch on to, but realized she had been talking too much. Now that I'm glad to hear. I'm sure you don't mind showing me, right? Naruto asked. Narumi began to stall. You know what? We're already here at our training ground. You three kids can stay and watch or go home now. I'm going to test my genin on their skills. Naruto told Konohamaru, Moegi, and Idan. The genin of Team 7 gulped but got ready to spar with their sensei. Good. Now show me what Kakashi's been teaching you. Naruto challenged. The three looked at each other nervously as they got in their stances. If you won't come at me, I'll strike first. Here I come. Naruto shouted out as he rushed them. Root HQ Danzo didn't really ever show emotions, but he felt like destroying things today. He was displeased. Very displeased. How did all of his spies fail to figure out where Naruto had been this whole time? That blonde bastard had been on a mission in Kiri, secretly building up a huge reputation for himself. A reputation that was strong enough to make him the new Hokage of Konoha. Danzo's face looked stoic, but his clenching fist told a different story. All of that planning and work to destroy Naruto's reputation and turn the people against him, and he comes back after one mission, and is seen as the second coming of the Yondaime. The people of Konoha were suckers for heroes, and Naruto had established himself as a hero of the highest degree. Danzo doubted he stood much of a chance against Naruto if he ran against him as a candidate for the next Hokage. That would be problematic. Naruto did not trust Danzo in the slightest, and Danzo suspected Naruto might have a clue about Danzo's involvement in the Uchiha clan massacre. According to the rumors, he was apparently too strong for Danzo to act against him without exposing all of his secrets, and worst of all, he could be absolutely ruthless, unlike Hiruzen, who let Danzo slide too many times. That part he begrudgingly respected, though it was bad news for him. He wondered what his next steps should be. There was a big decision to make. Should he just scrap his plans and try to get on Naruto's good side? Or was there still a way to smear his reputation? He stared at the chess pieces in front of him. White had him checked. Insuna. So? Have you thought about my offer? A hooded figure asked as he entered the Kazekage's office. Raza had a grim look on his face as he read through a scroll, keeping his guest waiting for a response. He finally spoke after a couple of seconds. Have you heard the reports from Kiri? News that the idiot Mizukage is waging a genocidal war against his most valuable assets? That boy is a fool, the hooded man replied. Raza shook his head. No. News regarding the victory of the rebels. The guest shrugged. Now that's surprising. I assumed they'd lose. But what does this have to do with our plans for Konoha? Raza threw the scroll at the guest, who caught it. What the reports have to do with your plans for Konoha is that a Konoha shinobi, one Konoha shinobi, was apparently strong enough to change the entire tide of the war, and even defeat the Mizukage. He was apparently able to defeat several battalions by himself. The hooded man read through the report. These are rumors. You know how people are, inflating and exaggerating the exploits of their heroes. This means little for our plan. You mean like the exaggerated tales regarding your fight against Hanzo of the Salamander? This means quite a bit for your plan. Raza replied rudely. The man just smiled at the thinly veiled insult. If you're so scared of this boy, leave him to me. I'll show you that my exploits in the battle are not an exaggeration. You and your shinobi can go fight the fodder. I'm sure you can at least handle that, right? He said sarcastically. Are you mocking the power of Suna? How dare you! Raza shouted as he slammed the table. The hooded man just smiled as he watched Raza. You can take your plan and eat it. Suna is not interested in risking the lives of its shinobi for a harebrained plan to stoke your own pride. Find someone else who's interested in being your pawn, because Suna will play no part in this foolishness. Raza replied. Now get out of here before I make you. The man shrugged and left the room. So, he thinks he can talk to me this way because he's on his home ground? Kukukuku. It seems people have forgotten about the power of Orochimaru of the Sannin. I suppose it's time for me to make a return to the stage, and show him just how persuasive I can really be. On the streets of Konoha. Hey look, it's Naruto-chan. Kakashi-kun, I said look. Enko told Kakashi, who was reading his book, as she pointed at Team 7 walking together. Did you say something? Kakashi said as he looked up at Enko. Hi, Kakashi-sensei. Dango ne. Narumi greeted with an upbeat attitude at having her brother back. Hey there, Ramangaki! Looks like you finally got your wish. Enko greeted back. Finally back are you now, Naruto-chan? Well, you're too late now. I'm on a date with Kakashi-kun. All this could have been yours, but you just had to keep a lady waiting, didn't you? Enko said with a pout as she presented herself. Huh? What? What are you talking about? Naruto said with a blush at Enko's assertive presentation of herself. Even after his relationship with Mei, he was still uncomfortable with overly flirtatious women. Enko smirked when she saw him squirm. She loved doing that to people, whether if it was through her overly aggressive flirting, or through torture. Meanwhile, when Sasuke spotted Enko, he went white and hid behind Narumi. Kakashi mirrored Sasuke, and went white when he saw Naruto, but he tried to mask his nervousness. If Naruto found out about Taki, he didn't want to imagine what would happen next. Hey Naruto! Long time no see! Kakashi tried to greet nonchalantly with a two-finger salute. Naruto's eyes narrowed when he saw Kakashi. Hello, senpai, he said through his teeth in a cold tone, saying the last word with a bit of a bite to it. Kakashi gulped. How much did Naruto find out already? Hey, you guys fall off a cliff or something? You look like crap, Enko teased when she saw the state the genin were in. We just had a spar with Naruto-sensei, Hinata replied. You! Narumi yelled as she pointed at Kakashi, when she remembered her gripe with the man. Your training sucks. We were able to force him to use some jutsu the last time we sparred, but now he beat us all with just taijutsu. We got weaker. Now, let's calm down here. First of all, I doubt you forced him to do anything. He probably decided to use a few jutsu for fun. Trust me. I know this, Kakashi replied, and Naruto nodded in agreement. Second, you've all drastically improved. Maybe not as flashily as you hoped, but your chakra control and elemental manipulation has improved by leaps and bounds. Your taijutsu is also much smoother and more precise, Kakashi continued. He's right. You've all improved quite a bit. I'm actually quite impressed, Naruto admitted. Then how come you were able to beat us so easily this time? I even had my Sharingan this time, Sasuke asked. You see, I went harder on you this time, because you guys were way too confident for your own good. I needed to teach you to be humbler and more cautious. Also, I brushed up on my taijutsu during my time away, Naruto explained. But about that Sharingan. Naruto turned to look Kakashi in the eye. If I recall, Sasuke here didn't have his Sharingan yet when I left. Naruto began. Sasuke cursed under his breath. He forgot he wasn't supposed to give any clues as to what happened in Taki to Naruto. He was just so excited to fight against Naruto that he revealed his Sharingan. Kakashi gulped. Shit. So do you mind explaining why he has his Sharingan now? Naruto asked in an ominous tone. Enko smiled mischievously as she watched Kakashi rack his brain for an answer, and Sasuke panicking as if some great secret had been revealed. Ugh. Looks like somebody's in trouble. Was Kakashi-chan a bad boy? She teased to escalate the situation, much to Kakashi and Sasuke's annoyance, who wanted to do the opposite. Well, you see, Kakashi began, trying to stall for time as he thought of an excuse. Naruto-kun! A yell interrupted Kakashi. Naruto turned around to see who called him, and saw Izumi waving at him, as she walked up to them with Mikoto. How have you been? We heard you were back, and wanted to find you earlier, but we were busy with work. Izumi explained as she walked up to Naruto. Kakashi thanked the gods up above. I owe you one, Izumi-san. He thought to himself. I've been alright. Just glad to be back home. Naruto replied. It's good to have you back too. Narumi-chan here has been missing you a lot, you know. Izumi replied. Narumi held on to Naruto's arm and leaned into him as she nodded. Naruto smiled and patted her head, seemingly forgetting about the interrogation he was conducting on Kakashi. Are you busy? Tsunade-sama and I were wondering if you were available for dinner. Mikoto asked. Naruto smiled. I always have time for you, Oba-chan. Where are we eating? Mikoto smiled back. That's sweet of you, Naruto-kun. We were thinking yakiniku. Why don't we head over there now? Izumi can go over to the hospital to bring Tsunade-sama and Shizen-san, while we head over first in order. That sounds good with me. Naruto replied. Alright team. Let's go have a team dinner. The genin were glad to hear that, because the strenuous spar from earlier had worked up an appetite in each of them. As Naruto was led away by a Narumi who was excited for some food, he turned around and gave Kakashi a glare. We'll continue our conversation some other time, senpai. Kakashi paled, but nodded. As Team 7 and the two Uchiha women walked away, Kakashi let out a sigh. Hey, I haven't seen you that scared before. What was that all about? Anko asked. Anko? Do you happen to have any poisons that will put me in a false death state? Kakashi asked desperately. Anko rubbed her hand on her chin. Not really, but if you're interested in poisons that will kill you, I'm your girl. Kakashi sighed and hung his head. Hopefully your poisons hurt less than what Naruto will do to me. Anko gave him a mischievous smile and raised her eyebrows up and down. Kinky. Nice. At yakiniku. Sweet. I haven't had yakiniku for so long. Narumi commented as she entered the restaurant and took a smell of the delicious aromas wafting inside. Mikoto chuckled at Narumi's enthusiasm and put her hand on her shoulder. If I knew you liked yakiniku almost as much as you liked ramen, I'd have brought you sooner. How's that seat over there, Ka-san? Sasuke asked as he pointed to an open room. That looks fine, sweetie. Let's go in. Mikoto replied, causing Sasuke to blush at being called that in front of his friends. Ka-san. Sasuke complained. Narumi sniggered. Alright now, sweetie, hurry up and go sit down. She teased. Oh? I didn't know you guys had that kind of relationship. Congrats. Tsunade commented as she entered the restaurant with Shizen and Izumi. He's quite the looker, isn't he? Tsunade added as she gave Narumi a wink. Narumi and Sasuke's faces both turned red. What? Sasuke? Oh gosh. No. You. How could you even say that, Bachan? Narumi shouted out. Me? With this violent mountain gorilla? Sasuke asked in shock, like it was preposterous to even consider it. Mountain what? Narumi turned around as she gave Sasuke a death glare. A violent mountain gorilla's favorite beautiful flower, of course. Why you didn't let me finish my sentence? That's right. And leave out the first part next time you describe me to others, you jerk. Narumi pouted angrily. I'm going inside. Come on, Hinata-chan, let's go. Hinata gave Sasuke an empathetic look as she was dragged in by Narumi. Sasuke stood in his spot, not understanding what just happened. Wasn't she the one who was disgusted at the prospect of dating him first? He looked at Naruto, wondering if what just happened had actually happened. Naruto just shrugged. I'm staying out of this one, he answered as he entered the room. Sasuke followed in after Naruto, shaking his head. Shikamaru was right. Girls are troublesome. Tsunade, Mikoto, Izumi, and Shizen stood outside and giggled. They'd be so cute together, wouldn't they? Izumi asked the other women. Shizen rolled her eyes playfully. Oh, stop it, Izumi-san. Don't tell me you're going to try to pair them next. What? Did I say something wrong? Don't you think they'd be cute together, Mikoto-sama? Izumi asked, looking for backup. While I would love to have Narumi-chan as part of our family, I'm going to let Sasuke find his girlfriend on his own. Mikoto replied in a roundabout way, not directly answering Izumi's question. Heh, I wonder what kind of man Narumi's going to end up with one day. I pity the poor soul who has to deal with Naruto, Tsunade commented, as she walked inside with Mikoto. Geez, how come nobody answered my question? They're super cute together, Izumi insisted. Sure. We'll go along with that for now, Shizen teased. Let's head on in. Hey, I'm serious. And don't forget what I said about you and Naruto-kun either, Izumi pointed out. Shizen began to blush, and she covered Izumi's mouth with her hand. Shhhh. Don't say that out loud here. What if he hears? Shizen whispered in near panic. Izumi smirked as she removed Shizen's hand from her mouth. Oh ho! So you're warming up to the idea already, aren't you? And no. Of course not. I'm just worried he might get the wrong idea. Shizen stammered, while Izumi just responded with a cheeky smile and raised her eyebrows up and down. Just hurry up and go in, Shizen told Izumi before she pulled a grinning Izumi into the room. At the Namikaze Uzumaki household, after dinner. Oof. Now that was a good meal. And the best part is that I didn't have to pay for it. Bless those two kind women, Naruto commented as he opened the door to his house for the first time in months. He was greeted by the sight of an absolute mess in his house. A stark contrast to how he had left it, which was neatly and in perfect order. Looks like you've been doing your chores excellently, Naruto said sarcastically. Oops, Narumi said as she scratched the back of her head. Naruto just gave her a stare that said, You're not getting away with that. In response, I'll clean it all up. Right away. I promise. Watch this, Narumi quickly told Naruto, to prevent him from nagging. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 10 clones of Narumi suddenly filled the living room. Alright clones. Get cleaning. Hurry, Narumi ordered as she clapped her hands. They rolled their eyes at her and grumbled as they began to work. Great use of the Kage Bunshin, Narumi-chan, Naruto told Narumi, impressed at the lengths she went to be lazy and make up for her procrastination. You'll be helping them too, right? Of course. I meant to help out from the beginning. Narumi lied, but fooled no one. Right, Naruto replied. Well then get to it. I'm gonna wash up and try to salvage my room. He then headed towards his room. Narumi's clones sniggered as they watched Narumi sigh and begin cleaning. Oh shut up you guys. Less laughing and more cleaning, Narumi ordered. The clones stuck their tongues out at Narumi, but then went back to cleaning. When Naruto opened the door to his room, he was shocked by how clean and spotless his room was. There wasn't even any dust anywhere. Huh. That's strange, Naruto thought to himself as his trained eyes scanned the room for clues as to what happened. The bed is made, but there's a small human frame imprinted on the blanket. The photo of me and Narumi is not in the location where I normally put it, but it's within reach from the bed. His eyes went to the trash can in the room and saw that it had empty bowls of instant ramen inside. So Narumi has been using my room. Strange though. She doesn't even keep her own room this clean unless I nag at her. He wondered. Hey Anai-chan, the milk carton says it's past its expiry date, but it doesn't smell that bad yet. Should I throw this away? Narumi asked as she approached him and gave it to him to smell. Naruto didn't even take the carton before he responded. Yes. You should definitely throw that away, Naruto replied with a grimace. So you've been using my room, eh? Naruto asked Narumi. Narumi blushed a little at being caught. Well, the room reminded me of you, so I used your room a few times. But I kept it clean. I promise I didn't break anything. Oh yeah, except for one of your ceiling brushes, but I replaced it. Promise. Naruto didn't mind her using his room in the first place, but the reason she used it melted his heart. Alright you little rascal, come over here, he told Narumi, who nervously inched closer, wondering what he was going to do. She was surprised when Naruto gave her a warm hug. You don't have to worry about using my room, Narumi. And thanks for keeping it so clean. Narumi responded back by hugging his waist, and leaning her face into his chest, where her eye level was. You're welcome, Oni-chan, she told Naruto with a giant smile on her face. After they split from their hug, Naruto came out with Narumi into the living room, and scanned the area. Alright, why don't I help you out so we can finish this faster? Naruto offered, and Narumi immediately agreed. A couple hours later, the house was spotless and neatly organized like Naruto preferred it to be. The two then headed to their rooms to sleep. Naruto was in his bed, settling into sleep, when Narumi entered the room with her stuffed fox doll in her arms. "Ni-chan? Do you think I could sleep in your bed tonight like I used to when I was younger?" Narumi asked shyly. Naruto smiled. She might be a genin now, but she'd always be his baby sister. "Sure, why not? Hop on in," Naruto offered as he scooted to make space in his bed. Narumi grinned and hopped right in. "Hope you don't mind that I brought Kyuubi-chan with me," she said as she put the stuffed fox doll between her and Naruto. Naruto chuckled. "Sure, why not? Kyuubi-chan can stay too. Thought I still don't get why you call that Kyuubi-chan when it only has one tail." Narumi giggled. "Oh, you know. Just thought it was a cute name." She snuggled into Naruto, and fell asleep faster than usual, feeling completely safe and comfortable in her brother's protective arms. Naruto looked up at the ceiling and drifted off to sleep, feeling completely content. He was glad to be back home, and back with Narumi. Meanwhile, as the two siblings slept peacefully, one being was not at complete peace. "I told you not to call me that. I'm the mighty Kyuubi, not some snugglebug." The Kyuubi roared angrily and defiantly in Narumi's mindscape. Narumi giggled as she slept. "But it's such a cute name," she mumbled in her sleep.